something I need to see. Something I need to see. They were left just in this block last night, so it's possible that the tracks I even found were theirs from last night, going into that area. No one had driven on it. It's always that tricky situation when you arrive back. You're not too sure where anybody's been or anyone's driven. But what we're looking for is some little flecks of white. Ginger, natural predators for the wild dogs: leopard, lion, definitely. Hyena can give them a bit of a hard time. Okay, so we've got some of their tracks over here. Leopard are very, very good at sneaking up on dogs. Not very clear over there in the sand. Lion will smash wild dogs if they can, but unfortunately the biggest threat to wild dogs on the African continent is in fact people, because wild dogs are such efficient hunters. They hunt livestock and sheep and all that. It's almost impossible to keep them out of a property with fences. Now that's just one track heading in the direction we were coming from. There's a couple more there, the youngsters. Okay, I'm just going to go around here and pop out, see if they've gone east. But lions, as if any of you watched a few years ago, Brent Leo Smith. Yeah, okay, those puppies were with them. They've gone north. Okay, let's go and have a look where they've gotten to. Had I think it was a lioness, I'm not sure which pride, killing a wild dog, and it's very hard to see those sort of things. I mean, they're very vigilant animals, they're very fast, they're not very powerful. I mean, when you talk about being powerful like a leopard or a lion, they're not very strong, but their strength comes in their number and their pack mentality, and strength in numbers is obviously, that adage goes quite well. And hyenas, if they really join together, would dominate wild dogs, but they don't have that necessary sort of let's help each other sort of ability. Hyenas are very, very selfish.
So we haven't really moved. We've done a little bit of repositioning. You can see this young little cub is now got her head up. She's very attentive. She's listening to every bird tweet, to literally any movement, which makes me very happy, because you can imagine normally at a very young age they're preoccupied and they want to play with their siblings, which I think is going to happen. So you can see, look how her behavior has changed from looking around her, and look, going straight down into that classic stalking position. Young brother must be about to pop over the other side of the grass. Look at that. No, just waiting. Her brother is now paused. He doesn't seem like he wants to play as much as she does, but she did come stalking over. But anyways, what I am trying to say is that it's really exciting to see that two young animals are listening to the signs of the wild, because sometimes they can get a bit distracted and just want to play with one another or venture off when mom has asked them very nicely to stay. But that's not the case this morning, which is awesome. I have just lost the call to the directors, so apologies if I don't get any of your questions, but we will wait for that to come back up. I'm also just every now and then you'll hear me go quiet, because my heart is also racing. I'm also listening out to make sure that those wild dogs don't make a turn. It sounds like the wild dogs are still on the property, but they are motoring very far towards the east. And sorry about the doodle-doo. There we go. Perfect. Now we can get all your questions, which is awesome. Hello, little girl. You can see how pink her little nose is still. She's got no scars. She's looking good. And they don't look too thin either. No, Kim, unfortunately, neither of these cubs have a name. Ah, there, her brother's coming towards her now. They're a little bit too young. I'm not sure when we will make the decision to give these cubs a name. Unfortunately, the success rate is not particularly high with leopard cubs, with cheetah cubs, with lion cubs. It's, if one of them makes it to adulthood, that'd be amazing. But, there is a chance that neither of them will make it. And that's just the sad reality, because it is that hard to survive out here. Nature really only allows for the fittest and the strongest. You have to outwit everything in order to make it to be fully grown, especially when you're left alone like this and you are quite curious. So that's the young male. We did sex him as a male, but we will double check because they were quite small when we tried and very fluffy. So we will make sure 100%. But you can even just see he's a little bit bigger and a little bit bulkier, not quite as fine as the other little cub. But very curious. Look how that light is just catching its eye so beautifully. Don't you go too far. You've been told to stay around here. The other thing is that normally when Mom comes back, she starts chuffing from a mile away, because I think sometimes, I think she understands that the cubs don't do what she wants them to do all the time, and they do go wandering. Sometimes they wander a bit further away, so they could have even heard her. But something has caught his attention. Might have been a francolin, a little bird, moving through the grass. Literally anything will grab the attention of these two young cubs. But look at him practicing, watching where he puts his foot, which is, of course, going to be very important for when he is grown up and he starts hunting for himself. Because if you step on a leaf or you step on a stick and it cracks, whatever you're hunting will hear you and give your presence away. And then that's what happens most of the time, unfortunately. There must be maybe even a squirrel or something in all the fallen trees in the background, because he's become very curious. So this is him going, I want to catch whatever's in there, not, I'm scared. Well, I think we're going to watch these two for a little bit longer. This could be a great morning, and hopefully we'll even see them playing.
Yes, we are in the Maasai Mara, and this is the beautiful landscape that we have here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Isaac, and on camera, as usual, is Big James. And we are live from the Maasai Mara. Today, we are quite far away. We are looking for cheetah. We don't know how lucky we'll be. The wildebeest is very scattered where we are, but we'd like to share with you the kind of landscape that we have over here. It is flat and empty as far as you can see. Only a few wildebeest on a mission, doing what they do best. They are moving towards the plains and towards the river. This is one of the landscapes we have in the Maasai Mara, or I would call it the habitat. It's called open savanna. We have four more. The one is the riverine forest, the rocky outcrops, and the escarpment, which those makes four. I'll get to give you the other one, but at the moment the area we're in is called Elwai Plains, and it's known for spotted cats, and that's the reason we are here. Remember that the population of the bigger cats is very high here, so competition is very stiff, and chances of seeing them are usually thin, but who am I to say anything? We haven't been showing you the same clip, or the same picture twice. We've been scanning. This is how it is. It is flat, just a few rolling hills as far as you can see. It's a beautiful landscape. All around me it is like that, unlike where I've been the past few days, where it's been swampy, it's been bushy. This is very different. Look at this. The grass is still high, not as high as when the wildebeest arrived. Kathy, you asked me if I've ever known any of the animals crossing the river at night. Of course, at night, the only animal that would cross the river would be elephant. It's not afraid. But through my experience, it's been very few times that I've been out at night. It is illegal anywhere to be out at night. So I don't have any experience of seeing anybody cross at night, but I would say if an animal was to cross, it would be the elephant. You see how empty it is? I haven't found anything interesting for you guys. I am struggling. But yeah, if you send me those positive vibes, I might be able to find you something in the next half hour or so. I will be turning back in the next half hour, following the plains, following the riverine forest, going towards the swamp, and hopefully I can have something for you guys. Remember to engage me. Pink Ellie, you asked me what is the elevation in the Mara. It's around 5,700 feet. But it varies. Where I am, it's around 5,700. Up at the escarpment, Olololo, it's around 6,000. So it's about that. They say in some countries that is skiing altitude, but over here, because we are very close to the equator, it is very temperate. It's very like predictable. Our days are usually 12 hours, night 12 hours. Nothing changes very much, and we don't get snow, or it's not as dry as you'd think. Yeah, I'm gonna move on, try and find you guys something before you get disappointed with me, and I'll catch you down the road. Yeah, because this is a very big area and you have to continue driving.
Isaac, I don't think you could disappoint anybody even if you've tried. You're always finding such amazing creatures. However, for me, this is an unusual sighting. Normally, I repel leopards, so I'm over the moon with the fact that I have two little ones. Now, the naughty little boy has ventured off a bit further, and we think we saw a scrub hare dash out, so that's obviously what he was trying to stalk. I'd be impressed if he caught a scrub hare, because it's maybe a bit, the scrub hare is probably a bit smaller than they are. They're not very big, so this is the young female. I think she's thinking in her head, I was told to stay here, now I'm going to stay here. Well, that's what I think anyways. But you can see she's just watching as he goes off. But it's important for them at this time of their youth to start practicing, like we saw, the stalking, getting those techniques right. Because if you don't practice them, you can't, of course, get any better. And they need to learn that it is not easy to find food. Marge, yeah, I think so. I think that they could definitely catch a squirrel or a unsuspecting francolin or a bird of sorts. It all depends on the individual, though, because you might find that some have honed in on their hunting skills a bit quicker than others. It's the same thing with humans. Some children develop faster than others. So it really just depends what captures their curiosity, and do they go after it. I'm so excited, and I'm really happy to see that these cubs are very relaxed because they don't mind the vehicle at all. Their mom, she's not as relaxed with the vehicles, but she's normally quite fine. So we should be able to see them playing and running up trees and chasing squirrels and that type of thing. But there's also been a lot of cases where unfortunately something has happened to a mother, and cubs have been sort of, I suppose, left to fend for themselves at very young ages. I know at and beyond Ngala there's a leopard. Ooh, but before I get into that, off you go to somewhere else.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have been waiting for, and we are very lucky to have seen a crossing. As you can see on the screen there, we just repositioned from where we were, and there we are. The wildebeest crossing the very famous Mara River that is sometimes full of life and sometimes full of death. These ones must have been scared, and you look at them carefully, they are all youngsters. most of the adults have already crossed, and you can see there the last tail of the herd that has just crossed to the other side of the river. How epic was that? Albeit being for a few minutes. Now, the ones that are remaining on the other side of the river, I'm very convinced that they are also going to cross because the bigger herd is on the other side. Barbara, I'll tell you, crossing the river would be like they could cross the river, stay for a day or stay for a week and come back the other way. So it's very difficult to know how long, Barbara, they'll be on the other side of the river, but it could be anything, a day, a week, sometimes even a month. Then they crisscross and come back the other side as they'll be heading to Serengeti National Park in Tanzania. We have seen occasionally, Barbara, these animals crossing the river 2 times in one day, go one way in the morning and come back the same way they were earlier in the afternoon. So it's always very unpredictable. Now, definitely, these ones know the dangers involved in that water. We got crocs that could be waiting for breakfast in there. In the bushes, in the thickets, there could be some predators like lions. It could be anything. I'm sure you can hear them calling each other. A very heavy decision going through their mind. In this particular group, as I said earlier, majority of them are youngsters or they're calves, about 6 months old. And most of the adults have crossed. So either way, these ones will at one point have to join them. Now, the Mara River starts in some highlands of Kenya called the Mau Escarpment. It is about 400 kilometers long, or about 250 miles long, and it drains in the largest freshwater lake in Africa called Lake Victoria, which apparently is the source of the Nile River. So the river comes through the Maasai Mara Game Reserve in Kenya. It goes to the Serengeti National Park in Tanzania, back to Kenya, and then Lake Victoria. Now, behind these youngster wildebeests, we got some zebras in the background, and I'm sure they may also cross together. Often, not once, we have seen these animals crossing at very dangerous points. The main river they'll cross into is the Mara River. We've got other smaller rivers in the Mara and in Serengeti, but the most famous one when it comes to crossing is where we are. And sometimes because of the height, when the place they choose or the bank of the river is very steep, we have seen them just plunging in the river and breaking their legs. Or sometimes, if they're unlucky when that happens, we get the crocodiles just waiting for them. Such difficult decision to make here. So we'll wait here a couple of more minutes and see what happens.
Oh, yes, they are. It's the difference between life and death. You can cross the river to get better resources, but you could die along the way. Isn't that just what the wild is about? Now, my 2 elephants have scurried away. And there you see one little one moving. Slowly moving south. Hopefully I'll be able to catch up with them. I think I might be able to in a few minutes. But they're right in the thick of this very big block at the moment. Hopefully they'll move down to a dam that's south of us, and we can watch them having a bit of a morning splash about. I'm going to be quiet. I think you'll be able to hear them. Possibly you'll only be able to hear some wind. Let's go forward just a little bit where it's a tad clearer, or that the bush is a little bit clearer. That's the benefit of game viewing in the winter, is that the bush is not too thick. There's a small gap here. Let's see if they'll walk through. There we go. Now in summer, all of this is green and lush, and we would never be able to see these elephants at this distance. You can see how well that grey skin actually fits in to the bush at this time of year. I always think grey is such a strange color. Why would an elephant be grey? But when you actually look at the bark and the color of the dry bush, it's really the grass that makes it the browny color. The bark of the trees, when they're dry, is very, very grey. And before you know it, the elephants are gone and they're utterly invisible. Jackie, you'd like to know which big trees stay green all winter. There's a few of them. The torchwood, Belonites mugami, that stays pretty green. The jackalberry, Diosporus mespiliformis, that one gets a little tinge of yellow, but it does not drop its leaves in the way that you'd say a knobthorn or marula does. So those two are the ones I can think of that are very large, big trees. Of the shrubs, or the smaller trees rather, not the shrubs, the African wattle stays pretty green, and the magic guari does too. I'm really glad that we're talking about some trees, and since I know you're interested, let's go and find some really nice ones.
Yeah, welcome back, guys. Here I have one of my few birds of the day, the scavengers of the Maasai Mara, and all cuddled up, all on the ground, because on the trees it can be very windy. That is the Ruppel's griffon, the African whiteback vulture there. These are the main scavengers of the plains. There are quite a good number around this area, and I don't know, the farthest to the left, that is Ruppel's griffon. He's got usually that ivory colored beak. I don't know why they're on the ground. I would say because it's very windy in the trees, it's less windy on the ground. But usually they are a good sign that they could be a predator on a kill, but I don't see anything yet. Those are called the Nine Hills, or Mulima Tisa. That is towards the Serengeti. If you look in far distance, that is the Serengeti. And I have another migrating herd of wildebeest. Very typical. Yeah, when you see this, you know that you are in the migration. You see them, walking in a straight line. That means they are migrating, they're heading somewhere. Usually they don't have a space, they have one specific direction, but when they arrive at an area, they mill around, moving up and down, and not moving, not doing, very much of an aim, like you would say, they don't have an aim of where they're going. Rocky Road, you asked about species. I don't know if you asked about vultures. I didn't get that. Could you frame the question again, please? Rocky Road. Okay, sorry, I got you now. You asked about bird species. I will tell you there are about over 500 species of birds in the Mara recorded. Yes, it's quite, about 510 to be exact, although they keep discovering one more. There is a small one to the left of the screen there. I don't know if you can zoom back. It's over there, James. It's wondering if you go, okay, we missed it. Looks like a puppet. Yeah, those are horns from a former wildebeest. You see them there? Yeah, this is what remains of a carcass. The skull, the horns, the vertebra last longer than any other bone. You can tell that all the keratin, the top layer of the horns, has disappeared, and that has been eaten by a horn moth. It's one of a very special moth that eats only the keratin. After nobody else eats it, it's the only one that eats it. After it finishes, now the bone is exposed, weathering takes place. Yeah, this is the same sort of kind of landscape I was sharing with you earlier. Flat, open, special place to find cheetah. That's what I'm looking for, but I'm not promising anything because I told you the predator population here is very high: hyena, leopard and lion, so competition is very stiff for them. So it's very difficult to see them, the cheetahs here because of the high competition. Now, this is a very important bird, and maybe it would be nice to learn more and see more about these special scavengers.
The Maasai Mara is a wonderland of wildlife. Countless animals thrive here. Predator, prey, and scavenger. Many in the sweeping migration herd will not make the return journey. For the ravenous aerial cleanup crew, the migration is a bountiful feast. Predators will kill more than their fair share, but others will fall victim to drowning, illness, and even old age. Thousands of vultures swoop from the skies of the Mara to devour the carcasses. The enormous leopard-face dominates, while the rupals, griffins, and white-backed vultures squabble and hiss for scraps. Jackals and storks may also enter the feasting frenzy. When the unruly banquet is over, the vultures take to the air once more.
Yes, always nice to understand more about these amazing but underrated scavengers. They play a very big role in the whole ecosystem. Surprisingly, they are very endangered due to poisoning, and their numbers are going down really fast. So anything to be done to save them is very welcome. Yeah, still the same story here. They are hoping it's going to warm up, or maybe they can pick up a thermal to help them, fly, somewhere where they can maybe spot a meal, which is in abundant this time of the year. Yeah, we have so many carcasses that are unutilized. Here we have the largest vulture, a lappet-faced vulture, and that looks like a pair. These, they pair for life. And in front there, we have a crowned lapwing. They also pair for life. If you look in between the vultures and way across, you'll see the other one. They are ground dwellers. They can be very noisy if they want. and can be very protective and aggressive against even lion and buffalo if their nest is approached. They lay 2 eggs on the ground that are so camouflaged sometimes it's impossible to spot them even when you're about a meter from them, because they resemble the rocks and the grass. And also they're very smart. The little guys, they lay them in a place where it's well disguised. So I'm gonna try and move on further down. I haven't found anything interesting more than these guys, but it's been nice, to show you these beautiful guys on the ground. I know you might be thinking, what's happening to Isaac? I'm saying, beautiful, but these guys are a very important part of the ecosystem, and I respect them because they make the ecosystem complete. Okay, we're gonna move further down, see if there is something else for you guys. Further up here, there is a nice watering hole. I'm hoping to find, some geese, some herons, and yeah, we can share them with you.
Well, I could have been wrong, and I think she might have gotten some concussions on the way up there, and she has slowly recovered. Now, she has to be very careful if she doesn't go in the right direction, which is away from the water, because inside that water it's full of crocs, and the crocs would very easily grab her before she recovers. All right, that's the right direction to go. Be careful. A lot of rocks there. And ladies and gentlemen, remember we are coming to you live from the Maasai Mara in Kenya. And should you have any questions or comments, please send them through hashtag CGTNWild or hashtag WildEarth. It's going to be a very tall order for her to go through those rocks there, but hopefully she has recovered very quickly. She'll get her balance right and she'll know where to step. Otherwise, she might end up in more trouble. I got feeling she's still getting her balance also in the brain, and everything maybe for now looks new to her. She still doesn't look very stable, and we'll wait and wish her well and see what happens.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a very crisp and beyond Pinda Private Game Reserve, where this morning we found a very unusual suspect that you've just seen, a greater flamingo. In one of the watering holes here behind me, you can see the hippo. If we go back towards them, who are probably also just come back from their night's grazing, all sort of huddled up. It's particularly cold this morning, but I'm hoping that if we can go, just talking about vultures on their own and wildebeest on their own, that flamingo is very unusual to see here. Beautiful picture this morning, that not a breath of wind for now, with the reflection of those trees on the water. But there, out wading in the corner of your screen, is that greater flamingo, who the past couple of days there have been two. I'm not too sure where its partner is. But nice to see that bird, and for those of you that have started lists back home, it's a really nice one to add if you haven't already. A couple of other birds around. If we look in the distance, there are some yellow-billed storks. Indigo Girl, you commenting that this is your first flamingo. Brilliant. Yeah, not something that we would add to lists here very often on Beyond Pinda, but a very nice one to add. And you can see those lovely pink colors. The other one that you might see is the lesser flamingo wading around. But oh, listen to that. The hippo is having a bit of a grunt. I'm not sure if you heard that in the background. But there, yeah, white-breasted cormorants floating about in the middle on the island, and on the trees in the back nesting as well. but a very crisp morning. We are in search of some lions who someone had seen earlier, and we were hoping that they'd come and join this flamingo and the pod of hippos where we are. But quite a bit of action down here this morning. Something coming into land up above. Let's have a look what that was. Oh, another yellow-billed stork. Missed you asking why flamingo are not common in this area. There are a lot of estuaries and inland lakes that are a lot bigger than this particular watering hole that you see in front of us, which I think offer a little bit more food for them. But maybe these two passerby were either going to one that saw this watering hole. It has been quite windy, so maybe just getting a bit of a break from the wind and found themselves here, and obviously have found food at the same time for them, so have stuck around for a couple of days, which is nice to see. There's a just below your screen where the hippos are, above them to the left is a grey heron who's also out this morning looking for maybe things like frogs or little fish or anything that it can get its bill on. You never know, maybe those hippos stir something up for him to grab onto. All the birds also starting to wake up, but like I said, with the snow and the rest of the country, we are starting to feel the effects of that snow from around the country. It is particularly cold here on Phinda. But everyone's starting to come alive this morning with a little bit of sunlight. You can start, I'm not sure if you can hear those bird calls in the background, but everyone's making a bit of noise. Jackie, you asking if flamingos migrate? Actually not 100% sure if they do migrate. I will have a look and see if they do. But yeah, very, very good question, especially now that we've got this particular one wading about in this watering hole. I'll have a look and see if they do, if the greater flamingo migrate. I'm just going to have a look up top those trees and see if there's not, this would be a perfect spot for an African fish eagle to be as well. Especially now in winter with all these watering holes, at least the bigger or the smaller watering holes drying up would be, and that's probably why you see as many water birds as you do here coming to feed on them. Just looking on the banks as well, I don't see any crocodiles that perhaps would be starting to come out of the water now to bask in the sun. Just noticed now that left of where that flamingo has disappeared to are a couple of spurring geese. See their red legs also having a bite to eat on that grass this morning. Those lions were sitting at another watering hole a little bit further beyond this where we're looking now, behind where those spurring geese are, making their way in this general direction. They might be on the hunt this morning. In fact, there's one there, we can see one now. If you look above the vehicle, they've actually come to join us. Just to the left hand side there walks a lioness across the road towards us, and up on the dam wall is the other one. Fantastic. So patience has prevailed this morning, and easy enough for us that these lions have come to join us. Brilliant. I'm hoping that if they do carry on their way, that they might come straight past us. But I think for them, yeah, not a bad place to have a look and see if there is a potential meal, because a lot of animals obviously are very water dependent, will have to come and drink during the day at some stage. So if they too are patient, who knows what might happen. It looks like something's caught the attention of the one on the right hand side of your screen. You can see how she's remained fixed on that area to the right. This is quite a... We're very close to sort of the hub of Anbionpinda, so quite a busy intersection. That's why you might see a car in the background. But I'm just looking through the binoculars at that lioness. I don't see what she's seen down there or what's caught her attention, but she is very fixed on something at the moment. Let's see, it would be quite a treat if they did come down and drink. I didn't think they would, because they've come, like I said earlier, they've come from another watering hole. Jerry, you're asking if I know which pride these two particular lionesses come from. They are from a pride of lions that we refer to as the mountain pride, just because of the area that they stick to. And they, if you've been watching the show for the last couple of days, Jerry, are the moms of the 5 youngsters that we've been following. And yeah, two very successful moms, and 2 moms that are very good at what they do. And I'm hoping that they slowly but surely make their way towards us this morning. You can see how they've sort of very slowly made their way up to the dam wall. On the other side, there's probably very good browsing for things like nyala that might be lurking in the area, even impala. But it is still very cold, and I can only imagine as today warms up, there's not a cloud in sight, that they could potentially come down or just hang around this watering hole and hunt. And if they are successful in doing so, go back and call those 5 youngsters to whatever it is that they've caught. But a very pleasant surprise. I know a couple of guys have been looking. For these lions this morning. I'm going to stay here and see what prevails.
Look at this impala. You may think it's actually a frozen shot. It's standing so still. I almost don't want to speak. Oh, there we go. A little movement of the head. Thank you, Impala, for letting us know that you are a real animal. Very beautiful young boy. Perhaps that's why he is staying so still, so that we can appreciate his beauty. You can see the whites above the eyes and by the lips. Looks like they've had a coffee and all the froth is on their lips. And of course they've got some white eyeshadow as well. I think they're stunning, stunning antelopes. Possibly one of the most beautiful. Really sleek. Lani, you say this is the frozen impala? Yes, this impala is posing. It knew that it was going to be on the show today. It put on its best impala coat. Interestingly, it's not looking at us. It's looking a little bit to the east of us, sort of behind our vehicle. It's always important, like we've said many times before, to pay attention to what impalas are doing. But this one seems a little bit... not sure what's going on with this one. Because all the others are very relaxed, and I don't think that this impala has seen something that has alerted it. If it had, the others in the group would have also lifted their heads up, at the very least. Perhaps it's just showing us that it's going to be a formidable ram when it's in its prime. I don't want to laugh at an impala, but this is quite funny. Well, this gives us a good view of the facial features. You can see those really large eyes. I have dissected an impala eye before, and they are pretty big. And you can see those large eyelashes too. There's also spots of whiskers, or what's called vibrissae, there by the mouth. You can see those tiny little spots. Those are its vibrissae. Help it to pick up, or extra feeling, another tactile sensory apparatus. Ah, do impala blink? That's what Ginger is asking. Impalas do blink. Of course, the purpose of blinking is to recoat the eyes in the water, or tears, so that they don't dry out. So yes, they do blink. Perhaps this one is not a great example of a blinking impala. Now it's showing us its best side. Oh no, the front side is the best side. They certainly do blink, and I love their eyes in general. They have these really, like I said, quite big eyes. And those gorgeous eyelashes. And what you're seeing, the amount you're seeing of the eye is probably only 40%. If you can see where the ridge above the eye is, the eye fits into all of that area too. And being such an important prey species, who also needs to care about its own survival, obviously, those large eyes are very helpful. The larger the eye, the larger the cornea, and the larger the retina at the back of the eye that collects all of the light information. And that's important when you need to be running from predators quite often. All the better to see you with. Okay, Impala, this is getting a little bit strange now. Either you need to alarm call for me, so I know that you think there's a predator around. Maybe it's just a very vigilant impala. I love watching animals do things like this, because we know the typical behaviors that we see in books, all of that. But you don't really get to hear about the strange little things that animals do. Sometimes you watch them, like with this impala, and you see they can also kind of just stare into nothingness and stare into space. And that's something that you're not ever going to read about in a book. Animals do some wonderful things and very entertaining things. Here we have an impala that can move and is very busy. Chomping away. This was a very, very interesting impala segment. Let's have a last look at our steely-faced friend. amazing. I'm sure this impala is a great poker player.
Good morning from a very cold Swala Kalahari. We had -6 this morning, so I hope wherever you are that you are all staying warm. As always, it is such a pleasure having you with us. David on camera, and my name's Dylan. It is going to be a great day out here. I have no idea what we're going to find. All I do know is that it is still breezy and it is very, very cold, so it's certainly not ideal for things like meerkats and any of the small animals. I'm just going to put it out there, put my heart to my sleeve here. I skipped a big beat when I got here this morning, and I was so sad because I got here, and every morning when I come to the dam, the first thing that I do is we check the Shelby family. It's like, okay, count the ducklings, are they still there? And this morning I get here and I could only count 3. So I was like, oh no, not another one. You got to be kidding. Anyway, number 4 did appear. So I think he was just like underwater somewhere, or I don't know what he was up to. But anyway, so there are still 4 little ducklings, which made me very, very, very happy. And of course, the very proud parents. I know there was a duck that died or got killed somewhere on one of the drives yesterday. And so any of you that were panicking about it being these Shelbies, have no fear. It was definitely not one of our friends. This family is still doing well, still going strong. But it's going to be a beautiful morning out here. Yes, like I say, it's very, very chilly, but nothing that we haven't experienced before, and nothing that makes it any less interesting. So beautiful lapwing right in the front here as well, just foraging along the edge of the water. So everyone's out and about and doing their thing. So yeah, no wildebeest crossings at this dam. Excuse me. But we say no wildebeest crossings, but have a look at this lapwing here. You know, everyone wants to see a kill one day. You know, well, no, I wouldn't say, like, let's not generalize here. A lot of people want to see a kill, and it's kind of like often seen as like that ultimate sighting. This little bird, we've looked at them before at some of the other dams. This guy is going to be walking along, making kill after kill after kill after kill, but we don't see it as that. Why? Because he's catching invertebrates. It's like, oh well, does that really class as a kill? But they are actively hunting, actively foraging along the edge of the water. I don't know what the pickings are going to be like today with this temperature though. Because even your invertebrates and that will take shelter in really, really cold weather. You know, you often think of it just being as a large species thing, like warm-blooded things, but it's not the case. A lot of things will shelter in cold weather. We actually saw on our drive yesterday afternoon, David and I had a monitor lizard that was out. And yesterday afternoon's weather was bleak, to say the least. It was howling out here. It was ice cold. By the time we got back to the cars that closed the show, I mean, the temperature just plummeted. But that notwithstanding, we actually had a beautiful monitor lizard out in the cold weather. Michael has just asked the question, and why I think it's such a fun question to answer now is because I actually commented on something earlier, and the question that Michael has asked, is it too cold for the roan and sable to be drinking now? So I mean, that's just 2 examples, Michael, that you've used of so many different antelope species that we got here. But when we got to the dam here earlier, an oryx, or some people know it as a gemsbuck, came like wandering down and drank water, and I actually said to David, I said, what on earth is that animal thinking, drinking ice cold water at this time of the day? That's like, I barely drink water at the best of times. To drink ice cold water, a glass like that first thing in the morning, no thank you. Let them do it. So yeah, animals, it also depends on the condition of the animal. We have no idea what was happening the previous day with that animal. You get certain species, excuse me, if you take something like not an African wildcat, a small spotted cat, which we've got here, it's actually more commonly known as a black-footed cat is a more correct term. These little guys never, ever, ever drink water, ever. You'll never see them drinking water unless they are on the point of death, literally. And if their livers start failing in it, then they'll go. So if you see ever see a black-footed cat, or your guide shows you a black-footed cat drinking water, you can bet your bottom dollar within a week that cat will be dead. It's just the way their physiology works. So coming back to your question about the Roano's sable, it's really, dependent on what was going on. Excuse me. Yeah, I've got a frog in my throat here. Or a toad. No, but it's really dependent on what was going on with that animal the previous day. I mean, you can't generalize and say, well, all animals drink from this time to that time and nothing happens in between. You'll get so much variation within any species. Like we say, we got that, David, that monitor lizard yesterday. It was freezing cold, and if someone had asked me 10 seconds before we found it, do you think you'd see a monitor lizard this afternoon? I would have said, yeah, don't even bother. It's extreme. It's not impossible, but extremely unlikely. And yet, there he was, out basking in the sun. Yeah, so we actually had some really nice sightings yesterday. But obviously, we just, we weren't on air, and, we didn't get airtime. We tried to purchase it, but it didn't help. Anyway, beautiful Steenbok, Wildebeest, Kemsbok.
Thanks, Dylan. Yes, well, it must be freezing. There's ice and snow all over the western side of the country. It's feeling a little bit fresh this morning as well. So everybody, the wild dogs all crossed over to Torchwood, unfortunately. They've all gone over that side. But they're not far from the Chitwa boundary. So we're just keeping our ear on the radio to see if maybe they go back down south. It's possible they might head on to Chitwa. We've had quite a lot of success with wild dogs and Chitwa in the past. But we also had some female leopard tracks this morning on our way towards trying to pick up on the dogs. So I've just moved back into the area to see if we can see where those tracks were maybe headed to. Here's some birds. You can't see them. No. The green woodhoopoes are calling. Have you got them? Okay. Are you going to be able to see them there? Okay, so let's see if we can see them. Green woodhoopoes. There we go. Now, these are specialized feeders. Their beaks are long and probed. They're able to probe the bark, looking for insects that might be hidden away in the cavities of the tree. And it's a specialized feeding strategy. You get the different types of specialized feeding with regards to filter feeders, like the flamingo and some ducks, able to filter zooplankton or phytoplankton, bacteria, algae out of the water. You get peckers, woodpeckers and the like, which are able to physically access insects and the like that are hidden away in the tree. And then you get probers, and there are so many probing beaks. Many of the aquatic birds that we might come across are probers. And the different shape and design of those beaks, some will decurve or recurve down, and some will decurve upwards. Some will be short, some will be long. All depending on the shape and size of the beak is how that bird is evolved and adapted to their habitat. Okay, well, we're going to carry on moving along here and see if we can pick up on any signs of that female leopardess.
So, while our search for the leopard wasn't very successful, we're very, very lucky that the trackers were able to find this morning. Now we've come across the pride, and they haven't moved too far from where they were yesterday. And as we can see at the moment, there's a little bit of a fight going on about some food. Just listen to them snarling at each other. It's usually quite a huge fight around the carcass. This pride, Sammy, is 18 animals. At the moment, I'm not sure how many of them are here, because it's quite windy. Some of them are laying down and they're very, very full at this stage. But they're 18 in total. That's including the 2 males and all the cubs. You can see the white young male is standing feeding, and what they're feeding off is a giraffe. And because it's 18 animals, and that's a lot of lions, they've already eaten quite a bit of this giraffe. Now, as we came in, we found one of the older lionesses moving towards this area. And from where she came, she was busy feeding on another giraffe, which is quite an interesting thing. And we suspect that this is the mother giraffe. And when they killed her, they went after the younger one, which probably would have stayed around the area because it was unsure what was going on. And then they take down that one as well. So that lioness has just moved off. I think she's probably had her full for now. It mainly looks like young males busy feeding. Have a look at the white teeth there. You can see he's got his face right in there, trying to pull off some of that pieces of meat stuck onto the skin. You'll see him, he'll lick it vigorously and then turn his mouth around at different angles. Alright, so how about a quiz for our viewers this morning? I'm gonna ask you a true or false quiz, and in this case, what I'm gonna ask is the giraffe's skin thicker than an elephant's skin? Or I'm gonna say the giraffe skin is thicker than an elephant's skin. True or false? Janice, how do 2 males share only one pride? That's a very interesting question, because the answer is a little bit complicated in the sense that I guess it depends on the 2 males and the pride itself. From what I've found and what I've noticed in my own experience is that with different prides and different male lions, that dynamic changes quite a lot. In this case, with this particular pride at the moment, I know that the one male is seen with the pride more often than the other male. However, both of them have cubs with this pride as well as another pride in the area that we know of. And yesterday, for instance, the one male was mating with a female. We didn't see the other male mate with the female at all, but in the past we have seen both of them mate with the same female, just at different times. So the benefit of having 2 males is that the one can be off patrolling their territory while the other one might be with the pride protecting the younger ones, and then they swap around every now and again. You can see these lions are really getting in there. You look at that white male, he's trying to get a piece of meat off from that thick skin, like right in the side of his mouth. The teeth on that side we call the carnassials, and like a scissor they basically cut pieces of meat off. You can see it looks like a female off to the left, and she is basically so full she has to lay down to feed.
So I just wanted to show you this wildebeest migration we're having here at the moment. You see that head migrated from left to right. No, I'm just amazed at the and I mean, I know it's a world-renowned spectacle, but the absolute staggering numbers of wildebeest in the Mara area there, it is pretty spectacular. We have somewhat less in this area, and this is a big territorial bull. And he's a magnificent animal. Actually, he's in his prime condition. You can see those, what they call preorbital glands just below the eye there. And that's what they use for scent marking on trees. You'll often see them walking up to trees and actually rubbing those preorbital glands against the tree. And that's how these bulls actually advertise their presence. It's part of their way of advertising their presence to other males and to females. He seems quite intent on something out to the right over there. So we haven't noticed anything. There haven't been any alarm calls. So, I don't want to say it's not lion or wild dogs or hyena or anything, because the one thing is so many people ask me, well, when you see an animal and it's nice and relaxed, and say, oh, well, there's obviously no predators here because the animals are relaxed. And, that's really not the case. Your predators, their whole existence revolves around being super well camouflaged, hiding from prey in order to enable them to get closer so that they can catch things. And imagine if the prey animals just knew every single day where the lions were. Then you wouldn't have lions on a giraffe kill, like we've got now in one of the other feeds. Predators are designed to be as sneaky as a weasel. Indigo Girl says it looks like this wildebeest took the wrong turn. Well, Indigo Girl, there are good news and there are bad news. But anyway, that's a... Give me the good news. You can see, actually, that's a really, really nice example. Well, they're also called brindled news, sometimes, brindled news or brindled wildebeest, because that lively pattern on the flank, that brindle pattern, you even get dogs, you sometimes get dogs with that brindle pattern. Wow, now there's a great question. Sam has asked this. Do you get wildebeest that do not migrate? So many species used to migrate for various reasons. This area was renowned for its migrations as well. And I'm going back like hundreds of years, not me personally, because I know I look hundreds of years old, but I wasn't there. But there are ample records from these areas of massive migrations. One of the very commonly encountered ones, or well-known ones in these areas, were the springbuck migrations. But being in a super arid, or let's say semi-arid savanna here, we have got major rivers within 300 kilometers of us. In fact, 250 kilometers straight line. And what you would have found historically was game moving into these areas in the summer months when you get ephemeral water bodies forming from heavy rains. And then as those dry up and the grazing becomes less, they would have moved back towards the river systems. So the question that you've asked in terms of do you get wildebeest that don't migrate? Absolutely, but normally a lot of these migration routes and patterns have been disrupted by people because we put fences around places. And again, that's a necessary evil. I'm not expressing any views over there because you really can't express personal viewpoints on platforms like this. It's it is what it is. And so often these migration routes and that have been severely disrupted or broken up altogether.
We have a golden-breast bunting having a drink at Treehouse Dam. I'm hoping that some other friends come down to have a drink too. It's always nice to sit at a dam. Oh, off it goes. At this time of year because the water is concentrated in these areas. Here's the usual suspect, a blacksmith lapwing. Doing its usual thing around the waterholes. Looking for a nice meal. They like tiny little invertebrates, especially little termites and ants. See those long, slender legs. Very beautiful. Now I've swung past the hyena den, which is inactive at this time. But we'll keep on trucking west. See what else we can find. We haven't picked up on many tracks or anything like that. I was hoping that maybe Shadudu from last night would be around, but we are not so lucky, at least not yet. But we still have a lot of time left, which means that the potential to find things is still very strong, I think. Digging through there. You can actually hear that the bush is quite quiet. Can you hear that? It's almost nothing. I had a Cape turtle dove in the background, but that is about it. So we're going to keep our eyes and ears very, very alert to pick up on some other fantastic gifts that the bush would like to give us. Alright, let us scan the edges really quickly. Off the dam. Let's go all the way around. Oh, there's the Cape turtle dove there. Very cool. All right, let's have a quick scan. Just along the edges there.
So, as you can see, some of them are still feeding. You can see it looks like they are feeding almost in a manner where they've had too much to eat. You can see it, their faces, you can see there's no like sudden movements anymore. Most of the white bellies of the lions around are showing, so that means they are content. They're so full that they basically can't move at this point. And that younger lioness have just stepped in, and she's taking over where the white one has left his part of the skin. Now she's right inside the carcass, in the rib cage. If I'm not mistaken, the backside is the part that's facing us, and it looks like this lioness is slowly, they might even be growling at each other. So I think they're meeting each other right inside that carcass. Maybe their heads are a little bit close to each other. Chrissy and Stardust, for the answer of is the giraffe skin thicker than the elephant skin, I think you've got it right. The giraffe skin is the skin itself, and that's not the layer of fat underneath that's included often with a lot of the measurements of skins, but the giraffe skin itself is the thickest out of the elephant and the giraffe. So very, very well done to you. And that is basically why we're seeing these lions struggle a bit. Now, lions have incredibly powerful jaws, and they are very powerful animals, but they don't have the most powerful jaws out of the mammals. And in this case, they are struggling a bit. And that's why we see most of the meat's been eaten out, but the skin is still covering the bones.
Welcome back to Djuma, everybody, where we are actually hanging out at a very nice watering hole up in the northeast called Buffelshoek. And there is two birds, one being a very aquatic bird on the right, called the three-banded plover. And this is an aquatic bird with no probing beak, but very aquatic, walking around on the edges of the water looking for any insects that float to the surface and float to the edges. Maxwell, these birds are almost exclusively insect eaters. I don't know if any of you have had a swimming pool at home, but you'll notice how, if you do have a swimming pool, when you clean the pool, how many insects are actually scooped out of the pool, or out of that filter system, the little basket that you have. Enormous amounts of insects will actually perish as they try and drink or get blown by the wind. Many of them have very short life cycles, and they also fall into the water. And so these birds just wait for where the wind is blowing them to the side. And so it's not a very specialized behavior. There's many birds that do it, but you'll get a difference in bird species that hang around on the edge in the I just had a poo. A difference in leg length. And then when you get the probing beaks, you get those that have quite a sharp beak, long, either bending upwards or bending downwards, and those are for sort of going into the sediment, into the soil as well, and looking for all sorts of aquatic invertebrates that are hiding in the shallows. And there are many, many, many of those birds you find around estuaries and sort of the shore around the world. But this fellow runs along the edge, very quick, very, very fast feet, constantly busy, the three-banded plover. What a wonderful reflection he has as well. We refer to these birds as wading birds, sort of a general class of their own. All of the birds you find walking around the shores of the lakes or the estuaries of the ocean, all referred to as wading birds. I'll have Westies wants to know how these birds keep their feet warm. Well, that's a very good question. The water is not as cold as we think it is. It's not as cold as when Dylan went into the water in Swalo a few weeks ago. I mean, it's fresh, of course, but by having no feathers on the legs, they've also got the ability to possibly not have a big circulatory system close to the surface. That is a potential, but they also do use their legs for cooling themselves down. So I don't think they lose a huge amount of temperature through their legs and feet, but it's possible that they do. And you'll find sometimes birds, when they're cold, they'll just plop down and their legs will sort of tuck up into their body, where their feathers will help to keep them warm. But I think how these fellows keep themselves warm is by moving a lot. Very active. You'll never see these birds spending too much time inactive. Obviously, night time. Oh, there we go. And then if they are cold, a little bit of a flying away sort of story. If they are cold, they can just plop down. Oh, there we go. We've got a lovely bird flying through and around. What bird it is, very easy to tell by the tips of the wings. It is a wonderful batelier.
So I'm going to admit straight out here, like one of our colleagues was talking about me walking through that water the other day. You know how badly that backfired on me? Because when I did it, I said to Jean-Andre, it's -6 outside here, watch. I'm going to go into that water and I'm going to show people how the water is actually not that cold compared to the outside temperature. Boy, was I wrong on so many points that I couldn't feel my feet for about 3 hours after that. No, anyway, lesson learned. So it's quite interesting that counter-current heat exchange, how birds keep their legs warm. There's waders in super cold water. Anyway, that's another story. But I just got this little nest that I wanted to show you. This is a southern masked weaver, super common birds, massive distribution. But what's intriguing about this, well, for me, I don't know what other people think, but imagine trying to make a nest of this complexity just using 2 fingers. In other words, go pick a piece of grass and just using 2 fingers, try weave everything together like that. Okay, maybe margin different, but you know, you get where I'm going with that. If you've got a bird that's just using its bill to make a nest, it is crazy. They use about 260 different pieces of grass to construct a nest like this. But on this particular nest, there's at least 5 different species of plants that they're using. And you can see the coarser stuff on the outside, and then that nice, snug, warm stuff on the inside over there. Amazing, eh?
Is amazing indeed. Birds. My favorite bird on the screen, everybody. On the right is the male green-winged pythia. Now, many people, and I think that is a juvenile on the left. Many people will ask me, why is that your favorite bird? Oh, it just flew off. Just look how pretty he is. Oh, how pretty is that bird? I think it's magnificent. Look at the colours. And there's a blue waxbill. Hello. You can see the size difference. You often find them in little feeding parties with a blue waxbill and 5 finches. And right now, they're all coming down to drink. There's a grey-headed, no, there's a female on the left, a female green-winged pythia and the waxbill. And they're coming in, obviously, much larger. Look at the size difference of those crested franklins. So these birds like to come and drink together. And they get a little bit scared because it is a dangerous time of day, exposing yourself to the sky. Rick, I've never seen these birds swim. It doesn't mean that they can't, but they don't really have the well-adapted feet like you see with actual birds that are swimmers. But I've no doubt if you throw birds into a pool, they'll be able to probably manage to get themselves out of it. They do love splashing, they do love bathing themselves, but they're not well adapted for being in the water. There we go. Wonderful. A little blue waxbill, so you have a little bit of a wash. Now doing some grooming. Down on the back. Some nice neck stretches. Pushing out all the barbs of the feathers. Oh, there we go. There's a golden-breasted bunting. Just decided to show who's the prettiest. Golden-breasted. As you can tell on the breast, and the buntings have all got that sort of mask-like white streaky face with black. It might not be black, it might be brown, but that sort of white mask that they wear is indicative of the bunting species we find in South Africa. We get the cinnamon-breasted here as well, which, as the name implies, has got a much sort of more cinnamon kind of breast, and then a mask too. Also get the rock bunting down in the other parts of the country as well as the Cape. They've got a very similar appearance to them. Critter, indeed, gorgeous little birds, aren't they? And it's one of my favorite things to do, to just come and hang out by a watering hole, pour a cup of coffee and spend some time. If you do have enough time and enough patience, the birds will just materialize. We initially stopped here to just see what would happen. and we're up to probably 9 species now. Also trying to track down a kingfisher I saw before. I think we might have a malachite kingfisher, but we'll see if we can get it for you shortly. We're sitting on a branch that's very invisible at the moment, but we might reposition shortly to see. A very thirsty crested francolin this morning. How wonderful is that camouflage? I can hear a chin-spotted batis. You never know what might materialize when you sit at a watering hole. I've had many, not just birds, come out to play, but predators, elephants, buffaloes. They just suddenly arrive out of the thickets. So if you do have the time and the patience and you're willing to settle down at a watering hole for a while, you never know what might come out. Binoculars are essential. And if your birding is not expert, even if it is pretty decent, a good bird book is very, very useful. One person with binoculars to help spot, and the other person to go through the book. For example, if you see a bird, you're not sure what it is, keep your binoculars on until you've categorized it. For example, now you're looking at this bird through your binoculars. Okay, it's a pheasant-like looking bird. Got a white line behind the eyes. Very much looks like a francolin, doesn't it? If you're not sure, I've never seen a francolin before, you'll notice that it fits into that category of those sort of quite round, large ground nesting birds. And with that sort of nice speckled camouflage, you'll see that the beak was black and the red or pinkish sort of legs. General behavior, walking around, scratching in the ground, pecking at the earth, scratching and digging. And you would very easily be able to identify this with its relative picture in the bird book.
So while the larger lions are fighting over mainly the skin of that dead giraffe, this little guy decided to take advantage of the fact that his mother is going to be moving a lot less for the most part of the day. And even though he's also had quite a bit of giraffe to eat, he's tucked into that teat and he is drinking some milk. Have a look at that. You can see he's trying to work it a little bit to get more milk out. His eyes is even closed. Oh, it's just open. So how amazing is that? You see that little guy? It's completely in complete bliss at the moment. It's just that giraffe now. He's got the chance to get some milk. I saw the other little one around as well. Not sure exactly where it is at this point, but I'm sure it's somewhere nearby. It's probably been oh, there we go. Ooh, I can see some blood on the face there. And you can see these guys are all flat. But I do know that some lions do on occasions climb trees as well.
It might surprise you to hear that lions can sometimes take to the tops of trees, if only in an effort to escape the infuriating biting flies. But Africa's biggest cats are also the clumsiest. Except for a notable few whose ascending abilities rival those of their rosetted cousins. This lioness of the Mara was named Miti, meaning trees in Swahili, as a testament to her climbing skills. When not up amongst the leaves, Miti's rich brown eyes and tiny cut on her nose makes her one of the Sausage Tree Pride's most recognizable lionesses. After having been seen mating with the resident male, we were not entirely surprised but rather impressed at her ability to maneuver her very pregnant belly up and down her favorite perch. Her newborn bundles found comfort and safety under a shaded canopy. While motherhood grounded Miti for a short while, we hope her cubs have inherited her light-footed abilities.
Welcome back. How interesting to learn about cats climbing trees, and especially lions. Yes, not meant to be climbing trees, but they can climb when forced. I have seen them many times on top of trees. They do climb for many reasons, sometimes being chased by larger prey like elephant, buffalo, rhino, but most of the time tsetse fly chase them up a tree. They bite and they can be very annoying, so lions climb for that reason. And the other reason is when it's very grassy or the grass is high, they do climb for good vantage to see, farther, especially when they've been going without meals. Off from lions and back we have the striped one, the one you can see here, zebra butchers. These looks like sub-adults, very happy grazing. Yeah, they looks like they're really enjoying the grass. It's a nice cool morning. Yeah, munching away the red oat grass, which is highly nutritious.
I'm enjoying my sighting too from one of the larger members of order Carnivora, those lions, to the smallest of that order in Africa, the dwarf mongoose. They're really, really interesting to watch. I love watching them. They're very entertaining, and at this time, they're all getting out and sunning themselves because it's starting to warm up just a little bit. And a termite mound is a great place to collect some warmth. Look at that little face. Very, very cute. Now they really, really like termite mounds, like I said, because they lose heat quite easily. Now, why do they lose heat so easily? Why don't you tell me? Use the hashtag CGTNWild or hashtag WildEarth. Let me know, why do mongoose and other small creatures lose heat so easily? Look at that, standing up now so it can collect as much heat as possible. And they're all on the eastern side of the termite mound. And that makes sense because the sun rises in the east. So that side of the termite mound will be warmest. and they have to gather a lot of energy before they can actually move around. It's still so quiet. I'm actually surprised at how quiet it is. I haven't heard an alarm call. Even the birds are quite quiet. Now, these guys have a relationship with hornbills, and I think they might be waiting for the hornbills to appear, and I think I will too.
Welcome back to the Mara once more. Remember, talk to me, hashtag CGTN Wild and hashtag Wild Earth. That's where you can ask me any question, of course, with the rest of my colleagues who are scattered in Southern Africa and over here in Kenya. I'm back with our migration, and this is a totally different herd. You haven't seen this one in 3 days. I cannot explain the difference. They all look the same, but the area we are in is totally different. Very windy here, and I'm glad to meet them because I was starting to miss them. I had been driving in the plains in places where it was very empty. But here they are, milling around doing what they do. Most of these are males. I remember yesterday somebody asked me if, they are males. Males are there. Rick, you ask which creature is the most fierce in the Mara. Definitely, that would go to the honey badger. Those little guys are ferocious, aggressive, and they would stand their ground for anything, even lion. So they still take the prize as the most ferocious and aggressive. Hope I answered your question. Okay, these guys are still heading somewhere. I don't know exactly. It looks like they crossed the road and then they decided to have a small meeting. I don't know what they're talking about. Maybe there's a security issue. Farther ahead, you see how they've ganged up there. Randy, you ask, how do wildebeest fight? Very much like many antelopes, they use their foreheads and horns to lock and push, usually trying to go each other or really break the neck or push one another. That's how they fight, very much like goats, sheep, cows, buffaloes. They do the same, but there is a technique they use where when fighting sometimes they'll fold their knees and go on their knees, then headbutt really hard. Yes, it looks like they've come to a stop here. I don't see who's talking, but they could be having a very silent meeting that I don't know what they're talking about. So maybe let's try and listen to what they're saying, if we might. I don't know.
Welcome back to South Africa, everybody, where we've got the most photographed bird in the Kruger National Park. Now, it's quite nice to see the lilac-breasted roller like this, all puffed up. He's a bit cold, it seems. He's all puffed up, wearing his bomber jacket. But the colours are just extraordinary, everybody. Really are extraordinary. Just so contrasting all over the body. A wonderful sort of greenish, turquoisey head, the pink sort of cheeks, the lilac-breasted chest, that sort of dark blue on the back, and then the turquoise blue around the sort of pineal gland, and the brown on the wing. Really is a marvelous specimen. Their hunting strategy is to sort of sit perched atop a tree and see an insect move, and then they plop down or plunge dive onto them. I don't think it's doing much in the way of eating right now. It's just trying to stay warm from that little chilly, cold breeze coming from the south. Butterfly says this is the most beautiful bird of the whole world. Well, butterfly, it's not far off, that's for sure. Definitely up there. It's definitely one of the prettiest birds you will come across. And he knows it. Looks twice the size it normally does. Like I often do in the winter months with all my jackets. Okay, well, we're going to keep checking our northern section here, see what we can find.
So while we're just on the topic of nests there briefly, number one, I just wanted to, you see this cloud cover that we're having out here this morning? I mean, it's absolutely spectacular. The entire sky is covered in clouds except for due north. But while we're on nests, typically what we're seeing when we talk about these sociable weaver nests are these massive structures like this one in the tree over there. And that one, however big it is still very average. They get 3-4 times the size of that. And in a colony like this, you can have 50 or 60 pairs of birds. And think of the construction that it's taken to get to that point. One blade of grass at a time. But the nest has to start somewhere. And when we see a nest like that, look at its humble origins. I just want to show you this really cool example on this side over here. And this, it never ceases to amaze me. Nest building in birds, doesn't matter what species it is. And I mean, if you look at things like bower birds, the incredibly elaborate constructions that they make, we don't have them here, but it's just an example. This tiny little pile of twigs over here, and then you get an idea, this scale next to my hand there. This is the start of a sociable weaver nest. So it just shows small, one blade of grass at a time. They'll start adding to it, and eventually, I mean, this entire branch could potentially be covered. I don't think, judging on the design and shape of the tree, I don't think that they're going to continue with this. It's just not the ideal branch structure and tree for these weaver nests, but that is the start of one. So it's just interesting to note that, I mean, even these massive structures, they've got to start off small at some point. And I've always wondered about that, the poor tree, because, you know, those branches eventually break when the nest gets so big. But I've always wondered from the tree's perspective, when that first weaver arrives and lands on that branch carrying a piece of grass, what that tree must be thinking is like, don't do it, don't do it. And anyway, then this nest just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And on the very old camel thorns and shepherd's trees, you'll often find underneath the trees these big branches that have broken off. Anna-Marie's asked the question of how long will it take to build these nests. So there's a team of people from the University of Cape Town that are actually starting to look into that now. Typically, you'll go out with guides and they'll say, these nests can be decades and decades old or hundreds of years old. No one actually knows, no one's actually quantified yet exactly how old these nests are. And these guys are actually and they're starting to look at old photographs. And in fact, we're going to be doing an old photograph sequence at some point over the next couple of weeks, so watch the space. It's going to be quite a fun thing that I want to show you. But anyway, back to the nest. So these guys are actually trying to get photographs from different areas in the Northern Cape here where we are and saying, okay, whether the photograph is 20, 30, 40 years old, whatever it is, of weaver nests, and then you can kind of see that progression. The problem with this, it's not a uniform growth curve on these nests, on the building, because it's very, very dependent on rainfall, and obviously the nest itself is exponential. So if you as the colony starts growing, so the nest gets bigger faster, but also if there's low rainfall, there's very little nesting material, it'll slow down. And better rain, more nesting material, the growth of the nest speeds up. So it's very, very variable. So yeah, good question, difficult to answer.
Well, these guys use a termite mound. And that's also pretty variable in growth. But they're just moving from one mound to the other in their territory, not contributing to the growth of that mound at all. But they do excavate just a little bit. Now, our question was, my quiz to you, it was, why do these guys lose heat so quickly? Which in turn also means, how is it that they heat up so quickly? Dina K says it's because they're so small. Judy H says it's due to the surface area to volume ratio. Both of you are absolutely correct. Because they are so small, they have a large surface area to volume ratio. So when we say surface area to volume ratio, it basically means this surface area, where you divide the surface area of this animal by the volume of this animal. And they have quite a large ratio, while an elephant has a very small ratio. So that would mean that the covering, the outside of the body of the animal that is exposed to the environment through which they can gain or lose heat, that area is small compared to the volume of that animal. And that means that an elephant will take a long time to heat up and a long time to cool down. And these little ones take a very short time to heat up and to cool down. Now, if you think about it in terms of cells, the surface area to volume ratio gets smaller as the cells get larger, which makes sense when you're thinking about mongoose and elephants. So the actual, if this is a single cell, will be limited in how much they can grow, because if you think about their membrane, that membrane getting too small for the volume of that cell, it will be constricted in growth because material will have to cross that membrane. At some point, it won't be able to cross fast enough to accommodate the volume within that cell. And if we expand that to mongoose or to elephants, you can see that they'll be constricted by the fact that they need a certain amount of warmth and they cannot lose a certain amount of heat. So their size is constricted by that. And that's why every single morning you'll see them sunning outside, even though they are mammals, so they will be keeping a steady body temperature. Even so, they'll need to come out and make sure that they're nice and warm. Well done, everybody. Well done. If you were a circle, which few animals or people are, then you have the smallest surface area to volume ratio. And anytime there's a kink or a bump, anything extra on a circle, that increases the surface area. Like I said, these guys will now be waiting for those that forage with them, which include starlings, sometimes squirrels, and especially hornbills. But the hornbills have not arrived yet, and often they'll wait for them. And sometimes the hornbills will even wait for the mongoose. But I'm sure, given the temperature right now and the sun out, they'll be foraging in no time.
We've just witnessed a bit of a foiled attempt, not a bit of it was a foiled attempt at a hunt this lioness. And there was another one out of picture further to her right, the direction that she's heading. One of the moms of the youngsters that we were with the other day just chased 3 wildebeest, but the wildebeest caught wind of them a little bit before and were actually quite alert. She then them by time, and she's now sort of heading back in the as well. That's where they left them this morning, was further back behind them, so I can only imagine that's maybe where they're heading back to. This one you can see she's walking with a bit of intent and focus, but from where she is, further back behind her now is where the other lioness was. I haven't heard them calling one another or trying to call one another. See, maybe she goes back out onto the road eventually, that path of least resistance. But the two of them, yeah, have been hunting or attempting to hunt all morning unsuccessfully.
So while those lionesses at Pinda's trying to hunt, we still with these lions, we've moved around a little bit, and as you can see, they are playing kind of a little bit of musical chairs. You see in between those two lions feeding on the ground by the giraffe's leg, that's the by now dried out stomach content. Now that's the part of the giraffe they don't eat. It's not completely dried out, it still looks a little bit wet, looks like part of the stomach there as well. And you can see all of this mess, as you might call it, or all of this waste. Look at that lioness literally falling asleep at the carcass, while the other one's trying to get into that last good piece of meat stuck underneath the skin. And the male has joined as well. Now he came in with a little bit of a roar, and then he got some sunlight on his face and started falling asleep. Tony, that's a good question. Would they eat the skin as well? From what I have seen, it's usually the hyenas that finish off the skin. The lions itself, they chew it on occasions, and they chew to try and get whatever fat or whatever nutrients they can get out of it. But I haven't really seen them eat it. Occasionally small pieces. They usually leave it for the hyenas, whose jaws is also a bit more equipped to actually deal with it, since it's such a tough skin. You can see both of those lions are basically just licking that area. There's still a lot of small pieces of meat. Look, there's a piece of meat right on that lioness's nose now. She doesn't seem too bothered. See, they're putting their head like deep into the corners there in between where the leg bones are attached under the rib cage. There's still a lot of meat there, even though it looks like there's not a lot left. You can see it's a real workout actually. That head turns in all kinds of angle. Look at how they actually assist each other. I'm not sure if they're aware. You can see some scrape marks there on the back of that giraffe skin, and I'm sure that's from when they tried to hunt this giraffe. They probably jumped on the back. Some of them tried to immobilize it as much as possible and then make it come down to the ground for the killing bite. You can see she's trying to cut off a piece there by using her carnassials. Now it looks like she is chewing the skin. I think that's to loosen it up more. It looks like that part of the skin's still pretty well attached. And I know that there's more meat, as we can see both of them trying. And when they lick like that as well, like the one was licking inside now, it scrapes off those small fresh pieces of meat from the bone, literally. And all of that together can be quite a lot actually. So it's amazing to see these two basically working together to get the last bits out of this giraffe.
So going from a giraffe that is somewhat under the weather to these giraffes that are also under the weather, but just high cloud weather. It's just beautiful seeing him in this completely different landscape to what we're normally used to seeing giraffe in. And although, I mean, our tree diversity is not nearly as diverse as in the areas where our colleagues are working, and often the tree height in this area is a lot lower, but there's still plenty of forage available for these guys. There's actually a lot of giraffe around. I mean, we don't have to pan the whole way around, but there's probably 20 giraffe in this area that we're sitting in here. So these ones very close by to us, and there's ones a lot further away. If you look at a herd of impala, I mean, in order for a herd of impala to be in contact with each other all the time, visually or scent or whatever, they'll normally be close to each other because they're so small. But these guys, even if they spread out over 2, 3, 4 square kilometers, their eyesight is exceptionally good, and obviously they stand out quite easily, so they can be in contact. So even if you see this little group over here, and then 400, 500, 600 meters away there's another little group, it doesn't mean that they're completely separate. They're maintaining contact all the time. But what a backdrop, eh? Man, that's gorgeous. Yeah. You can never get tired of this place. Never, ever, 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 ever. So Fiona's asked, why do giraffe regurgitate their food? Well, all ruminants do that, and it's a very, very, very important part of the digestive process. So they'll typically not chew it very, very well to begin with, and then they'll go down into the first stomach, come up, get chewed, go back down into the next stomach, and that's a process that actually often species that are eating these bulk plant material, and it's not that high quality. They need that process to go through so the gut flora can actually start helping break down the food that they're eating. And then you get examples of things like your odd-toed ungulates. These are what they call even-toed ungulates. Your odd-toed ungulates, things like zebra that don't do that. Your equids that. And there's a number of other examples as well. But then they'll tend to chew their food a lot better the first time around. Ruminants, I think I said that, yeah, ruminants, yeah. A ruminant. A ruminant. I feel like having a bit of play on words there, but it'll be a very bad one, so I'll just get reprimanded. What a gorgeous landscape. Oh man, and even these ice cold mornings, I don't care how cold it is out here, I really don't care. Just this landscape with these clouds, it is just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous out here. Yo.
Thanks, Dylan. Well, welcome back to June, everybody. We've got ourselves a wonderful long-tailed or magpie shrike, depends on how you'd like to call him. I forget sometimes which one is the new. Oh, he's up there on the right now. Which is the new and which is the old name. I think the magpie is the old name and the long-tailed is the new. But do forgive me if I get it wrong. I know many of you out there are firm favourites of the old names. These are cooperative breeding birds. Normally, you find them in small groups. And very easy to identify these birds with that long tail, the black and white coloration. We also refer to it as pied. And being a shrike, they are very predatory, but mainly for insects. Like the lilac-breasted roller we saw earlier, these fellows will sit on a branch looking and waiting for something to move. It's a very good way of conserving one's energy. And normally found in sort of semi-open woodland. They don't like it too dense. Sorry about the game drive radio there. See is facing the wind. You'll often find birds will be a very good indicator of the direction of the wind. They face into it, otherwise it's very difficult to balance. Oh, off he goes. Okay, everybody. Well, there's a... Oh, he's just right behind us here. Well, Skirst, you said that's a very pretty bird. Well, here he is again, or she. Holding on, using the tail as a sort of a balancing pole, and the wind coming from the front. So quite easy to see wind direction when you see birds and the way that they're sitting in a tree. They use the wind to help them with flying, but it can be a bit of pain when they're trying to rest. Constantly balancing. Was looking for any movement in the undergrowth, and then we'll plunge dive down onto it. And off it goes.
So now that the third lion that was on the carcass have moved off, we only have this one lioness and the male. And the male is basically fast asleep at the table. He's got this clear beam of sunlight straight on his face. And because of this cold wind, I think that makes him feel quite comfortable, especially with a full belly. So, with this wind blowing at the moment, we can see a lot of the trees around it's blowing heavily, the grasses are moving. I think that aided them in the hunt of this giraffe. And I think because of the fact that everything's moving, the fact that they're so well camouflaged within this landscape, all of it, and also the fact that their scent would have traveled away from this animal if they approached it from the right direction, and that would have all aided to their advantage in taking down a large animal such as a giraffe. That and their numbers. You can see it looks like that male's still sniffing some of the meat there. He's thinking about eating, and because he's a male, he'll eat a lot more than the rest. But I do think that in this case the biggest part of this giraffe is done, and the rest of it will slowly but surely get chewed up and taken off. Ooh, there we go. He's getting up. He's got a second wind. Smith, that's a good question. When will the young male be forced to leave the pack? So a group of lions, we call them collectively a pride. It's just a way that we call them, but I guess a pack is also not wrong. And that young male, as things stand, he's almost 4 years old, and he is supposed to be pushed off by now, or either have left on his own accord. But because he's on his own, he doesn't have any other brothers his age, And the only thing he knows, being a social animal as other lions nearby, he's decided to stay around. And this male here, which is quite an aggressive male, you can see he's trying, ooh, look at that skin on the inside. So he's missing one of his canines, and that's why he's struggling to get a good grip of this piece of skin, but he knows where the good meat is, so he's going to try and get in there. Looks like he's going for some of the meat at the base of the neck there. But because that young male is on his own and he doesn't have other brothers really, and that he benefits from the numbers and the pride, he hasn't gone. And also these two males, even though they've tried their best, they haven't really been able to push him off completely. They've injured him quite badly. I'm sure it was them that gave him that injury. And they've also had a couple of fights with him, but he doesn't seem to get the picture. And I think the reason for that is he's also quite strong and large for his age. And the pride has given him a little bit of backing. As long as he stays clear and he doesn't interfere directly, he's okay. You can see this guy's really trying to get in there to that last meat now. You can see he's struggling quite hard. These animals' power is just something unbelievable. You can hear the growls, probably exhibiting his frustration with trying to get to that meat. Now by the looks of him, I see his belly's not completely full. And I think we might see this guy eat quite a bit longer this morning because of that. Normally he's got a huge appetite. You can see as the sunlight hits him, you can see those well-defined muscles on the body. It looks like he's got quite a wrinkly skin. Now, that's not because of age, that's just because they basically don't have a lot of body fat. It's almost pure muscle. Now imagine you getting quite angry and grumpy at the frustration of trying to get to those hard to reach pieces of meat on your T-bone steak. And sometimes you might even cut your gums a bit on the bone while eating. But imagine for this guy it must be quite frustrating. It should be interesting to see how far he'll go to get to that meat.
I bet that lion wishes it had a long neck like a long giraffe so that it could reach on in, or maybe like a vulture, better adapted at feeding on the insides of animals. But anyways, we've got a giraffe and it is healthy and doing well. It is a big male giraffe and is one of the most impressive bulls that we have here at Pridelands. There's two of them. They're about the same height and they're quite similar in color too. But you'll see, look how light his face is, and then as soon as you go down towards his neck and to his shoulders, look how that color starts to change. Isn't that awesome? He's like completely black. So this just goes to show that this is a giraffe in the prime of his life. He's got good genetics and he'll most likely be doing most of the mating with the females that will be around here. But they're awesome animals. And you can see he's using his tongue now. One of the few times you'll actually see a giraffe stick its tongue right up is when the trees are a little bit too tall. Now, hopefully he's going to pop out again. He's going behind a guarri tree. I think, Sebastian, we might actually have to reposition. Let me quickly go forward again. I won't have to go too far up the road, but we'll just try and anticipate what his movements are going to be. Hopefully he doesn't go down and behind us, because that might be a bit tricky. See if there's a little gap here. Oh, sorry, Seb. Let me do that. There we go. We have to find a gap through the trees to view the giraffe. Okay, right. Shall we try a little quiz and see how we do? I hope you are all listening. How many species of giraffe are there in Africa? Remember to either hashtag Wild Earth with your answers or hashtag CGTNWild. How many species of giraffe are there in Africa? It's a tricky question. I'll give you a clue because they've recently been reclassified. So that should maybe help you there. But I look forward to hearing from all of you. Oh, a little hop, skip, and a jump as that giraffe navigates some difficult terrain. We'll just have to have an abstract view at the moment as we sort of watch him feed. Now, I'm hoping that we can see the little black bird. Did you see it there, Sebastian? There we go, just behind, just if we go a little bit lower, literally behind that giraffe, every now and then, in the center of frame, you're going to see a little black bird. Can you see that? There it flies. So that is a fork-tailed drongo. Now, this is quite interesting. Obviously, all the animals out here play a role within the ecosystem. And there's some animals that have relationships with one another. We call it symbiosis. And that symbiosis is called commensalism symbiosis. So essentially what's happening is that giraffe is just going about its day and feeding and, carrying on like normal. But that fork-tailed drongo, that bird, is benefiting from the giraffe because it's disturbing a whole bunch of insects as it moves through the long grass and it brushes through the trees, and a grasshopper or a butterfly or some kind of insect might be resting there, and it flies up and the drongo can then catch it and eat it. So I think that that's quite nice. And you see that relationship not just with the giraffe, but the fork-tailed drongos are known to follow all sorts of different mammals. But they're very intelligent birds too. He's actually just sitting a little bit lower now. That's where you'd prefer to sit, because the legs are going to be kicking up a lot of the insects in the grass. He's just munching away there. At least he's not going down into the little drainage line behind those trees, although it's becoming quite tricky now to see him. You can also see how the wind is picked up here at Pridelands. I think it's the same thing for Djuma and also Ngala and beyond. As most of South Africa is experiencing a bit of a cold front at the moment, so it's icy cold today. Not that I think it'll be bothering the giraffe too much. With their thick skin and their hair lining their bodies, I think that they'll be nice and warm. But it's impressive though, hey, how camouflaged a giraffe is also as soon as it's in the shade. You quite easily drive past it and not even realize that it's there. Awesome, this is so nice. Hopefully we can stick with this giraffe and it doesn't give us the slip.
Welcome back to the Mara, and I am in the middle of the migration now. As you can see, I'm back with the most abundant animal this time of the year, the gnu or wildebeest. This herd here is happily, grazing. They don't have an idea of, which direction, they want to go, because some of them up there are sleeping. These ones here are facing to the left, but the area they are in has no crossing, has no water. So they will have to travel either to my left about 5 kilometers or to my right and the same direction. In front there we have cattle egrets. You can see them taking advantage of the little creepy crawlies that are being disturbed by the wildebeest. See them how they move their heads. They dance their heads, you know, very interestingly. Yeah, and then just grab whatever is being disturbed on the ground. It's a symbiotic relation between the wildebeest and the egret, where it's called mutualism, where, you know, they benefit. If there was a tick that was supposed to go on the gnu, the cattle egret will get rid of it, and so it saves the wildebeest from getting the disease, and the egret itself get to feel its tummy. So it's a very interesting behavior that they have here. And they will follow buffalo, also giraffes and other antelopes. Those you see there are basically males. You can tell they have, you know, thick horns. Yeah, beautiful view. That is the Olololo escarpment you see there. Yeah, on top of it is a human habitated area. The rolling hills are part of the savanna that we have here. It's part of one of the largest habitats. Yeah, more egrets waiting patiently for that little, you know, grasshopper to be spooked by the wildebeest. Surprisingly, unlike oxpeckers that will alarm the wildebeest of any danger, the cattle egret don't play a very big role in giving them, you know, a warning in case of any danger. So apart from saving them, they don't save them from predators, apart from saving them from parasites. This herd here looks basically of mainly males, and they're munching away, moving their heads from one side to the other, enjoying the grass.
Here we have some little birds. I love seeing blue waxbills. I think that they're absolutely gorgeous. There's quite a few of them all digging about there. Can you hear that? There's a bearded woodpecker. You'll be able to hear it in a moment. Can you hear that? Tick, 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 tick. That's a territorial drumming that they do. Oh. Can you hear the sweet sound? Cheep, 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 cheep. I quite like this because for so long we were saying it's so quiet. The bush is so quiet. But the sounds are definitely starting to come out. We have the little cheep, cheep, cheeps of the blue waxbills. We can hear the woodpecker. The bush is coming alive. I just love that. You can see it's getting quite windy. The grass is swaying. Look at them pecking through. So they'll be looking for little seeds, little grass seeds, even little insects. It's a lovely little scene. I love just sitting around and watching all the little birds come over. And sometimes you don't need to say anything. You can just watch them do their thing, and I quite like that.
Thanks, Trish. Well, it sounds like a birding morning. we've got a bird we don't often get on camera, a wonderful Burchell's kukkel. To Afrikaans viewers out there, known as the vlei loerie. These are voracious predators, often skulking around in the vegetation. They are a very, very adept walker and climber through the vegetation. They do fly, but they often spend most of the time moving around and skulking through the vegetation, and they can feed on many, many different things. Small mammals, birds, eggs, insects, taking baby birds straight out of the nest. There we go. Oh, what a marvelous scene. We're quite far away, so that's why we're able to get him such marvelous views right now. Also known in English as the rain bird. And if you just listen to my microphone for a moment, you shall hear why exactly. Well, this is the call, but many people associate this call with rain. So if you listen to there, look how he moves. Very sort of gurgling sound. Very gurgling sort of sound. That sort of black cap, the buffy white underparts. And there we go, into the vegetable. Oh, still there. Well done, beaks. Very powerful beak. Predatory-like beak. Oh, Melody, I'm super excited. That's a new bird for you. Keep checking them off. And there we go. That's probably the longest sighting I think I've ever had of, still there. Probably the longest sighting I've had of a Burchell's kukkel. They are very skulky. You can spend time looking at them with binoculars from a distance, but they're always in and out, in and out, in and out. But we're just a little bit elevated here down at Twin Dams, trying to see if we can do a spot of birding in the small pan.
So our giraffe didn't give us the slip. He's actually come out into a much better view that we can see his entire body. There he is. Now you can see how tall he is. Now I believe there's some great answers coming through from the quiz that we asked just a moment ago. And there's quite a few varying answers. From 3 species of giraffe to 5 species of giraffe and then even to 4. But we do have a winner, ding, 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 ding. It's just bragging rights for you. Beverly, who said there are 4 species, but there are 9 subspecies. So at one point, there were 9 species, but then since then they've done some reclassification. But unfortunately, there aren't many giraffe left in the world. There's only about 110,000 left of them in the wild across Africa. And the species of giraffe that you're looking at, this is the southern giraffe, so one of the 4 that you get, has got the most in their population by a significant amount. So this is the species of giraffe that you'll kind of see around in southern Africa. And then the others are the northern, the reticulated, and then the Maasai giraffe. So we were talking about birds and relationships with varying animals. If we go down to just to the left of the giraffe and on the floor, there's about 3 different species of birds that I saw. So the fork-tailed drongo is dropped in, and then on the right-hand side of the screen, you can even see some southern red-billed hornbills. There was a pair of them, and they're getting quite excited. They're dropping down into the long grass, which is not great for us. There goes the drongo again. And there was also a magpie shrike, which I believe that Steve had earlier. That's the drongo that's just sitting there, yeah. So all of those birds now interacting with the giraffe, I suppose, social distancing from the giraffe, just trying to get all the little insects every now and then that are flying up. Although it's chilly, I can't believe that there'd be any insects around. I reckon they'd still be frozen on their blade of grass. But I do like how this giraffe is feeding, and he's feeding in such a delicate way. Oh, there I say that, and he took a huge mouthful. Not that there's many leaves on this particular tree. So you can see they don't always use their long tongues. Sometimes what they will do is they will just pick very gently with their lips and they'll pull the leaves off. But there, when the branch gets a little bit too high, their tongue definitely helps it out. And there's very little that can compete with a giraffe when it comes to sort of feeding on those high levels. Maybe an elephant, if it can stick its trunk up far enough and pull a branch down. And then, of course, if you've got vervet monkeys and things like that feeding in the tops of the trees. Otherwise, the giraffe kind of have that feeding level all to themselves. Although I think he's struggling at the moment because there's not much greenery around. Well, not many leaves that are very tasty. But spring is just around the corner, and some of the trees should start to get their new leaves in just a couple of weeks. You can also see that a tongue is great to clean your nose if it's long enough. We see that with giraffe and buffalo often cleaning out their nostrils. I wonder if he's eating the little twigs as well. So the giraffe don't eat any grass. They just eat leaves and they'll feed on flowers and things too. Oh, I'm getting a bit tangled in there at the moment. But I'm sure you're wondering what happened to the leopards, Taylor. You were with leopards this morning. So we're going to head back in that direction now and see if the two little cubs have been reunited with their mother.
So while that giraffe is reaching for the top of the leaves in trees, this giraffe will never do that again. I can see where that young one's laying sleeping off to the right. You can see the head of the giraffe there at the back, and notice how that skull has been cleaned off the meat. And usually some of the parts I've noticed that they go for first when they do eat these large herbivores is the jaw muscles around the cheeks in that area. You can see there's some molars exposed within the jaw. Now, because the giraffe is a ruminant and it chews the cud and that jaw moves in a circular motion quite often, we find that that's a lot of good meat in that area. And often while the rest of the animals are fighting over the bulk of the meat in the body, you have some of them go for that good meat around the face and especially the jaw area. Now this male is still feeding the big male. This young male, you can see, he's looking off in the distance. He has not really been allowed to come into that bigger part. So if I can ask all our viewers to send some questions in towards us at #WildEarth or #CGTNWild. Send any of those questions you might have, anything that you're curious about. Jazz, today is a very, very windy day, and to answer your question, why is there no vultures waiting in the background? I think the wind's playing a big part in that. Usually when it's very windy like this, large birds of prey often tend to perch or find shelter. The other thing is also, like, these lions have killed this giraffe, and they must have killed it sometime early during the evening last night, because it's basically almost done. I think they've eaten so quickly, but over the amount of hours during the evening, that most of it is done. It hasn't really been warm enough for vultures to actually get up and fly around and be able to spot this from the sky. So I think in that regard, they might still come. At the moment I haven't even really seen any hyenas in the area, which is kind of unusual. You can see, look at the uncomfortability of that young male there at the back. Look at the size of that belly. The wind certainly providing him with a bit of relief from a very, very full belly. Now that position, I find that often when they are uncomfortable, that seems to be the most comfortable way to lie down. You can see he's even got one foot on that dead giraffe's head. What an interesting type of life. I don't know how often some of you might have fallen asleep near your food while eating. And I think this puts a new meaning to that. You can see that belly is quite dirty, the feet, the underside of the feet there. Now from the blood of this giraffe, all around this area, created a lot of mud. And that's why some of these lines are so dirty at the moment.
Well, the moment most cats get full, and especially the lions, chances are they'll always go flat and not very far from their kill. Well, I had to reposition from where I was, but I kept driving along the Mara River, and I am at a different location. And look at this particular wildebeest here, who I'm very convinced was trying to cross with the rest of the herd, but unfortunately, like the one we saw earlier, did not make it. Now, this one no doubt has a broken back leg. The other one, you remember, I thought had broken, legs, but then just found out maybe she had some concussions, woke up, got her bearings, and she moved on. And the good news is that she was able to get away from the river from the crocs who didn't catch her. Now, this one, hopefully, she'll also make it. Maybe, who knows. But looking to top left of the screen, I would like to warn for those of you who could be a bit squeamish. It's not the very best sighting, but all those are dead wildebeests. Not the best sighting, as I said earlier. Should you be squeamish, be warned, but this was about 2 hours ago. And just the stampede, the pandemonium of jumping one over the other and trying to get out of the river. Whoops, I might have to apologize for saying all of them are dead. I just saw one move its head. But either way, I want to believe most of them are gone. Well, these are things that will happen once in a while, but it's all a cycle of life. Now, that one there is still alive. And what would happen here, maybe later today, we'll get loads of vultures that will come and feed on this. Lions definitely will have a party. If the crocs in the water here will be able to climb up, they'll start dragging them one after the other to the water. You can see how tricky that area was for them to climb, but apparently some of them went through the same point, climbing on top of each other. Now, sometimes you call the Mara River during the migration the river of life and the river of death. I want to believe the river is not very deep where we are now, but just the other side of the bank is rather steep, and chances are, quite a number of them could not make it. And unfortunately, this particular group did not see the end of the day. Remember, we are live from the Maasai Mara of Kenya, and should you have any questions or comments, please don't be shy, send them through #CGTNWorld or #WorldEarth on Twitter. Kids, we are not leaving you behind. Should you have also questions or comments, do so. Kids questions at worldearth.tv. is what the circle of life is. It may look a little bit sad, but the good news are all these will be fed on by other predators. I was talking about vultures earlier, and vultures do a pretty good job, but it's very easy for lions to eat here. The only challenge is for them to come and get these wildebeest, they have to bring them down to the river. And bringing them down to the river, they'll meet crocs in the river. Well, very sad for these wildebeest that did not make it. But again, I said, on the upside, we'll have a lot of animals to feed on them. Butterfly, you're very right, and you're asking they trampled each other. Absolutely, butterfly. That's exactly what happened. You have ever seen when people group together and there's a bit of stampede, even when people will be involved in rallies or protests, and there's a bit of run here and there, and there's a tear gas, for example. This is what I would say. And the whole idea of these animals crossing the water, they know very well the dangers in the water. Lots of crocs in there, and they have, through experience, the number of times they have crossed the Mara River, they know what happens. Apparently, other times you'll get predators like lions or even leopards or cheetahs on the riverbanks waiting for them. So the thing they have to do very quickly is to cross the river, and it is in the process, out of that confusion, this butterfly happened. And if you look at them carefully, some looks bloated. Either they could have been stuck in the water before they managed to cross, and they kind of, drank so much water, because the one at the bottom of your screen there, you look carefully, the legs are quite apart, and I would imagine it might have drowned and sucked, or, sucked lots of water in its abdomen. So as it warms up, and the smell maybe goes out there in the air, either vultures, could be hyenas, would come. I only give a good chance to the scavengers, the vultures, because of the location of where those dead wildebeest are. Any other predators could be very difficult to access that particular area. The gradient there, it's very steep. We have seen interactions of lions and crocodiles in the water, and should that happen, then I think here the leopard's gonna win. This one here is still struggling, didn't cross, but still it has suffered, I would say, some bad fractures on the hind legs. Is a very good candidate here for lions, because where it is, the sand, it's flat, and it's on the riverbank, the side we are in, and the ground or the accessibility of it to this predator, to the lions, is very easy. Hopefully you make it. The other one we saw earlier was concussions, I guessed, but this one definitely you can see it's limping badly. It's turning and looking to his friend and maybe wondering, she could be a little bit lucky that she didn't cross to go to the other side to die. Well, there's another build-up that could be coming about another half a kilometer from where we are. We'll sit here patiently waiting.
Welcome back to the other side of the Mara. I hope you're having a good time, with the river. Here I have masters of sleeping when they've been eating or when they've been fed well. Lions, I mean. Here they are lions, lionesses, and cubs. There is two about 7 to 9 months cubs. You will be seeing them shortly. And here is nap time, and in different styles. There is belly up, belly side, and I think there is a lot of belly sides and belly up at the moment. Lions spend a lot of their time sleeping, especially when they've eaten well, about 18 to 20 hours over a day. and the weather is perfect for them this time of day, and this is what they are doing here. That one there is using a tree like a pillow, and you can tell he's got, some hairs, a mane. Look at that arm. Yeah, very, very strong, very, big. Yeah, look at it. Yeah, that is a fully grown mane, and also male. He's got the belly up and supporting his paw and leg, using the tree. They're all spread out. This is the Owino Pride. That's one of the females. She's been up looking at something that I cannot find. She's been following something in the grass I cannot find. Remember, they have very good sense of sight, or very keen sight, and they can see a warthog tail walking along the long grass, and maybe that's what she sees that I cannot see with my powerful binoculars. They have better eyesight than us. Sammy, thank you for your question. You ask me, what's the name of this pride? It is the Owino Pride. Owino Pride. It is one of the prides in the Mara Triangle. We did have about 6 prides last year. We're still trying to find all of them. We have found the River Pride, the Owino here, the Mogoro Pride. We haven't found the Salt Lake Pride. We haven't found the Sausage Tree Pride. So we're still finding them as we get to explore the Mara Triangle. The females are up now. You can tell now this belly bottom, panting really fast. Typical of them after they've been eating. The temperature is really cool here, so it's perfect for them. Yeah. The grass is drying up. As you can see, it's going to match their color quite soon. Those are the little guys there. The one is up. That's one there. It looks like they're about 8 months old, so they were born earlier this year. So I haven't seen these guys since last year, when I was with Wild Earth in February. So these are new to me, and maybe to most of us. So we'll be exploring them, telling you if they're males or females. But from a distance, I can see he looks like a young male. Yeah, the head is bigger. He's got more hairs or mane. Even that one looks also like a male. He's much younger. I would say about 6 months. Yeah, those young ones looked like males, so hopefully they will grow to be together, because it is very bad luck if you're a male and born alone, because to exist or find a territory, you need to have a cousin or another male to form a coalition. Let's learn more about coalitions. Yeah.
Contrary to what the Lion King would have you believe, male lions are not part of the prides, and rather go about their days in coalitions. The males are often of a similar age, forming a brotherly bond and forging a territory of their own. However, in the Mara, Kipuli, an older male, took 2 young bucks under his wing. The young males were wary of the battle-scarred male. But under his tutelage, both gained confidence with the females and with staking out their territory. The alliance with Kipuli gave the boys a privilege normally reserved for much older males, as long as respect was kept for the older, bigger male. all the males don't often tolerate inexperienced fellows. But this alliance was a smart one, as Kipuli turned potential enemies into allies. A bond allowing all three lions to thrive.
Welcome back. Always nice to get an insight and see how coalitions are done or formed. Well, the one thing that most of us don't know is that lions' life is very difficult, and especially for males, and towards the end, when they reach the age of about 12, 13, they start losing their manes. Also, competition is always stiff when they're that old, because females also needs to feel confident to breed. So they would feel they would rather have new males. So new males coming in as a coalition will always chase away the old males. Also, competition is very high for them when they're that old. Their teeth are worn out. They cannot compete as much while eating. Usually, towards the end, most of the male lions starve to death. They move towards the villages where they start eating domestic animals, donkeys, dogs, cows. Sometimes they get speared, they get poisoned. Also, they start following, hyenas and scavenging. They get, killed by hyenas. So towards the end, the lions live a very difficult and horrible, miserable life. So, but in the beginning, at the age of six as males, they're they have a very good life. And especially like these two males here, they have enough females to take care of most of the killing, although they do help. So it's rather interesting towards the end of a lion's life how difficult it can get. Can you imagine being the king of the beasts, and then all of a sudden, you are starving, or you have nobody to take care of you? Very, very sad.
Welcome back, everybody, to and beyond Pinda. We're in looking for an elephant. We've come across the other two lionesses of the same pride that we were with earlier. They, on the other hand, have got very full bellies and signs, or what looks like a successful one. They've got blood on their cheeks and on their paws. And in front of us is a watering hole. And usually to help them digest that food, they'll head down to water and have a lap of water. So I'm hoping that if we are able to stick with them, that they'll eventually head down and have a drink this morning. They are just off to our right hand side out of picture at the moment, slowly but surely ambling their way down. Contrary to what I say, if I do shoot ahead and we wait for them there, they might just end up lying down. It is quite hot now, and it is very windy as well. So they might just rest up for the day, and only later on, when it cools down, maybe look to potentially meet up with the other two lionesses. Holistic, you're asking why we don't see males hunt like we do females. A lot of the time, and like maybe you saw the other day, they might steal the kill or a kill from pride members or lionesses in the pride, but they do have to go out and patrol territories, so they obviously have to look after themselves and eat themselves, so they will actually kill, and they are quite successful at that. They often miss things, but they too will hunt themselves. But perhaps it's when they're off patrolling territories that happens, and we don't see that. But every so often we do, or we are lucky enough to see the males hunt. Females, there's often just a lot more of them, so perhaps easier to follow, and that's why we see them a little bit more hunting. They've just disappeared, slowly but surely making their way down to the water, and I wonder if I shouldn't loop around to the other side. Loop around to the other side and see if they don't join us on that side.
Welcome back. That's the other side of lion. When there is something to eat, they don't play with food. I've said this and again, they gorge themselves as much as possible. It is like they have elastic, skins and bellies, so they'll, eat and eat and eat. I have seen, and I've been talking this through experience, where a big male lion had eaten so much, he was so discomfortable, sleeping. He tried to sleep on his side and it was impossible. He went belly up and he couldn't, succeed to sleep. He slept on his belly and it was impossible. Eventually he had to walk a little bit of a distance and, vomit or throw a little bit out to make space to breathe and also to be comfortable to sleep. That's how, they gorge themselves when there is food. Sandy, hope you're okay. Thank you for your question. You asked me, how long they will sleep after eating. Unless there is something disturbing them, it's a good 18-20 hours straight, non-stop, lifting their heads every now and then, trying to make a comfortable position every now and then, but they don't have anything to worry like another predator. They just sleep dead straight 18 hours non-stop. I wish we could do that, but also if we could only eat one meal and then sleep, which is impossible for us. Yes, remember this is the Owino Pride, and we are in the Maasai Mara Triangle. Talk to us, hashtag CGTN Wild, and hashtag Earth or Wild Earth. Yeah, every now and then they have to lift their heads up and then make a comfortable position and sleep. There is some very young cubs. I think there is about 4 of them, and 2 of them are about 6 months. Then the rest are older. That one there is older. I'm gonna try and show them to you maybe this afternoon or tomorrow morning, so we can see all of them and we can have an idea how many there are. Remember, it's been long since we've been here, and it's nice to catch up with them.
And there we see that male just going flat down. And look at the size of his belly. We saw an interesting development now. Him and this young male closer to us had a little bit of a standoff where this young male was actually quite upset because he couldn't eat. And then he kind of went all submissively towards his father, or one of his fathers. And now he's finally getting his chance. It's interesting to see. They usually, when they approach a carcass, they sniff around to see where the part is that they want to start feeding off. I wonder why he's ignored that part. I do know that the other male was feeding on the backside there. And here comes the slightly larger male as well. So that one off to the left, he is the brother of the young white male. can see is a little bit of a size difference. These guys have been growing quite quickly. They've been eating very well over the last couple of months. And even though they had to eat a lot, because they got a huge growing appetite, they do go through something as big even as this giraffe quite quickly. It's almost this, you kind of find that when the lions, especially younger lions like this, are eating this giraffe, you can see all of them this morning have been struggling to get the pieces of meat tucked away under the skin. And you can see there's a lot of effort going into trying to get at that. Puts his head straight in there. He's probably closing his eyes at this point. Imagine the smell. And I find it's usually the males, especially with the younger males. There'll be some of the last ones feeding around the carcass. I think what we've seen now is the initial feed is done. A lot of these lions have had their fill for now. But like this one that's just come in feeding, he stopped feeding earlier, had a little bit of a rest, and now he's coming in again. I think some of the others will take their turns as well. See, as he's pulling the skin off, you can see there's some pink flesh exposed. Cole, how long will it take them to digest all of this meat? Well, it's tough to say exactly because they keep feeding the whole time. They have quite a short digestive tract, which means that even though it's a massive amount of protein that they take in at once and meat, they do digest it relatively quickly. And if they had to stop feeding now, it'll make its way through their digestive tract, and most likely by tomorrow they would have already digested most of it. But because of the fact that they've been eating for such a long time, it might take them a little while longer to digest it, and I think they're going to spend most of the day digesting at least. Some of them, especially some of the older females, might even be a little bit full by tomorrow. Younger ones like this one, it's got quite a quick metabolism and is growing very quickly at this age. They digest quite quickly, and therefore they eat as much as they can while it's there. Ooh, here comes the other male in. Now he's already got a full belly as well. And this should be interesting to see, but so he's been laying, we haven't seen him feeding all morning. Now I think he might have actually digested a bit to the point where there's a little bit of space to try and cram in some more. Although for the moment it seems like that female there at the back has drawn his attention more than the food.
Welcome back everybody to And Beyond Pinda, where contrary to what I said, these two lionesses, I think with full bellies as it is, have just rested now in the shade of this guarri tree. You can see that lioness tucked away there with her head quite low to the ground. It is very gusty now. This morning you can see as the grass blows quite vigorously from side to side there. I think, yeah, they'll probably be in a bit of a food coma for the majority of the day. Maybe a little bit later they might venture off to have a drink at that watering hole that I spoke of, but yeah, I don't think they're going to head down there this morning. They found themselves a very comfy spot to lie down in. Also another vigilant spot. I mean, lions don't know when their next meal is going to be, so if something does come down to drink, very opportunistic cats, maybe see if they can't grab another meal off whatever menu presents itself here. We saw a couple of waterbuck at the previous water hole and some impala as well, so I can only imagine things will come and go because yeah, it's got the potential to be quite a hot day. The other lioness who's lying just beyond this one, I can't see at all. She's so well hidden in there. She's found a really comfy spot in the shade there. Even this lioness closest to us is really well hidden. Ear twitch every now and again, but we can't even see the black spots behind her ears. As she lies there, very, very well concealed. Might just leave these two lionesses in peace this morning and see if we can't find anything else, maybe down at watering holes where it's a little bit protected from the wind, if anything's getting a little bit of a break, maybe rhino or that elephant we spoke of earlier that we saw the tracks of.
Yeah. Okay guys, welcome back. It looks like they are doing what they do best when everybody's full. Yeah, they have styles of sleeping. They are at a distance. There is the youngest cub I was mentioning. Yeah, he looks, that one looks like, is that the youngest one? Yes, he's the youngest one, about 5-6 months old. So there is different ages. There is another one I saw looked like 8 months. Yeah, see that one there is bigger than the other one, about 8 months. So they are different ages. Remember, mortality rate for these young guys is very high in the first 5 years. Sorry, in the first 3 years. It doesn't guarantee them when you see them this big, like this guy. He's quite big, about maybe 2 years. It doesn't still guarantee that, he's gonna leave, because if there is scarcity of food, competition at eating is very stiff. So they sometimes do starve and they get left behind because they cannot catch up with their mothers. It is said that, their mothers would sometimes leave them, travel distances up to about 3-4 kilometers to feed, and sometimes never come back. So it doesn't guarantee them when they're about 1.5-2 years that they will still survive. I have seen some very scrawny, skinny looking lions, some, sights you don't want to share or see. But over here, this time of the year, everybody is very happy. They would not be sleeping like this with the wildebeest only 100 meters away. Yeah, I like how they use the tree as a support. I wonder, if they do feel like the leg goes numb because the flow of blood is not as good, so they have to put it down like that. I'm sure some of us do feel that way sometimes when you have your hand up or your leg up, you feel like there's no flow of blood and you need to put it down. Yeah, like she did. Remember, more questions are welcome. Make it more interesting. Yeah, we are live from the Maasai Mara. Talk to us, hashtag CGTN Wild and hashtag Wild Earth. That's where you can find us, chat to us. Let us tell you more about these beautiful creatures and beautiful places that we are in, so you get to understand how it is. Yeah, she's on her belly now. Remember, she was the one that was up earlier and looking around. I couldn't tell what exactly she was looking at, but now she looks very relaxed. Sorry. Yeah, they're still relaxed. I think what I'm gonna do, because I don't want to feel like them, I'm just gonna leave them here and go find something else. Hopefully it's going to be much more exciting for you guys.
Oh, I found some very active impala that are reading all the signs for the Sabi Sands. You can see them in the background there. Obviously, being in a game reserve, you have to have a bit of signage. And these impalas have decided they need to cross our western boundary. Scott, you'd like to know how fast an impala can run? An impala is pretty quick. An impala can get to a very high speed of about 80 kilometers per hour in short bursts. So they can be pretty fast. Well, they're crossing out of Juma now. And I think it is time for a quiz. Why are the impalas crossing the road? No, that's not your quiz, everyone. I just couldn't help myself because they were crossing the road. But I did see a drongo close by that inspired me. And I'd like to know from you, what is the animal with the largest wingspan to ever roam our skies? If you know the answer, or you just want to have a go, use the hashtag CGTNWild or Wild Earth and let me know what is the largest wingspan of any animal to roam our skies. Currently, it is the wandering albatross that has a very large wingspan of all extant species. That means species that are still alive today. It has the largest wingspan. That's about 12 feet or so. My drongo hasn't come back to give you some inspiration. But most of the impala have crossed the road. And you can see they're all a little bit nervous because the wind has picked up drastically. But surely they'll find a spot of safety in the west there. And I'm going to keep on going and do some birding.
Well, good luck to the impala and well done for crossing the road, because my wildebeest here tried to cross the river but did not make it. That's all what happens out here in the wilderness. You plan to cross from one side to the other. Sometimes you make it, sometimes you do not make it. We're still here waiting patiently for the wildebeest to have a good build-up, and hopefully we are going to see them come and cross. Look at that bank there. That's very steep. It's a very, high gradient for this beast to just even dare to come and cross. But if the lead group decides that's where you're going to cross, or what you see there, all those are tracks. You'd imagine how many crossed here. I would say hundreds or thousands maybe. All those are tracks of the hooves of these wildebeests. As I said earlier, the big point here is, or the message is, cross as quickly as you can. Robin, you're asking what crossing point is this. There are quite a number of them on the Mara River. This one, we call it Bond 2. Bond 2, Robin. Not sure which ones you know, but this one is called Bond 2. We got another one called Kaburu. We have another one called Main South. We have another one called North. I mean, there's so many of them, but this one, Robin, is called Bond 2. We're not very far from where the Mara River enters the main Mara and the Mara Triangle. But when you look at this site, for those of you who have not seen this before, you'll feel sorry for that one wildebeest there that is still struggling. It's not dead as yet, and I'm not sure what I could do, but what we do here in the African bush is we try not to interfere with Mother Nature. Oh, this is natural happening, and I do not want to say nature at its best, because we'll have different views, but the thing is, this is all natural. And the wildebeest are in their thousands, so do not worry. We have like hundreds of thousands of these animals, and this maybe is the only way nature can keep a check on their massive numbers. The thing is, I think the legs are trapped there in the midst of the other ones, and there's no way she can communicate with the rest of them because they're dead. Because if anything, they would have, I'm sure, given her some leeway to just rise up and leave because she is still alive. But the other tens of them are gone. Again, for those of you who could be a bit sensitive, take it easy, because this is the cycle of life in the African bushes. And this was a crossing that was maybe now going to 3 hours earlier in the morning. And we're coming to you live from the Maasai Mara of Kenya. Don't be shy to ask questions. What happened there? To send comments, you're more than welcome to do that. Hashtag CGTNWild, or you can use hashtag WildEarth. I'm not going anywhere. I'll patiently sit here, because from a distance I had a bit of new, and maybe the time they'll decide to come and cross, we'll have a possibility or a chance to see that.
So, and there the last one is moving off. Or maybe he's just making some space. We'll see now. You can see a nasty cut on his front right paw. And now I think he's gonna go pile himself up with the rest of his brothers and sisters, and here comes a big male. So finally he's come back. Now have a look at the way he's scraping there. It would be interesting to see. Ooh, and now he's marking as well. Urinating and scraping with the back feet. In between the toes of his back feet, he's got glands. And it leaves chemical traces. And that's how he shows other lions that he's dominant. They can pick up on the scent of that, and they would know. Now, it should be interesting to see what happens now. He might go and lay down in that spot. I've often noticed, especially with this one, he clears the ground underneath where he's going to put his belly and then start feeding. But it might also just be him covering or trying to cover some of that stomach content. So he's got stuck between his claws there. And look at the size of those feet. You can see the dew claws hidden. Now he's got a lot of fur around his face with that big mane, so he looks like he's a little bit more hesitant to stick his head straight in there. Now he's starting to chew on that. Bone sticking out there. You can see he's also positioning it on the side of his mouth, trying to chew off whatever pieces he can get off from that. Now, what's interesting about this male is he's also missing one of his canines, like the other one. They don't always get a good grip on their meals like that. Ooh, how is that? It should be interesting to see if he is able to lift it up and turn it around, because I'm sure there's still meat on the other side of that rump area of the giraffe. Now at this stage, I think he's more trying to see whatever good pieces is left. Just look at those muscles as he's pulling it. So he's using the back feet. And then leaning backwards, like really putting his back into it. Although I think it was maybe a bit too much effort for him at that stage, and maybe because he's so full, he's rather given up for now. Haler made. Do male or female lions pass on the white gene? In this case, both of them has to have the gene in order for a white cub to be born, and even then it's a recessive gene, and it's about a 1 in 4 chance of one of the younger ones being white. If only one of the adults have the gene and they're both tawny, it will usually not happen. And if one adult is white and the other one not, chances are also good that it might not happen. Now I think this lion actually seems to be a little bit more practical than the others. And we've seen them all trying to get to the meat on that side, and you can see there's still a lot of very pink, looks like quite fresh meat on that side, and I think he's the first one we've seen moving around that side to try and pull the skin down towards the side where the meat actually is. All of the others have been trying to access it from this side. You can see he's carefully... Oh, I got a claw stuck in there. Just look at those claws. So he's pulling the skin away from the rib cage, and then that meat between the skin and the rib cage is what he's after. Just look at that. Normally those are the claws we don't see except when they get them out to grab something carefully. And then there's a lot of licking going on. Trying to soften up the skin, maybe remove some fur. And there we go. Now the meat there, I can't imagine that it would be large chunks of meat, so I think that's why we're seeing him licking so much as he is at this point. You can see every time he lifts his head, the eyes are almost closing after each lick. You can almost see that he is enjoying himself. There's a lot of effort to get to what's left on this giraffe. Like the major organs, the major parts of meat have been finished, and whatever's left now will have to be earned through hard effort. And you can see he's quite adept, and he knows very well where to get the best parts left on this giraffe. Now, for now, I think this male might continue trying to struggle to get those pieces of meat, and myself and Gerrit's gonna sit here and see if he succeeds.
Okay, welcome back, guys. Yeah, that is the other side of lions. When they are eating, they don't play with food, like I said. And after they've had their bellies full, this is the other side. Surprisingly, this is one of the most dangerous animals in the African wild, and especially when you're on foot. This is a top predator, an animal built and made for the kill. It will kill for no reason. It is very aggressive. Anything that is a good size for it, it will kill to eat, or just kill to get rid of it. Mind you, they might look very lazy, but they can get very active within a very short time. It only can take 0 to 60 seconds for them to accelerate from 0 to 60 kilometers an hour. So their reflexes are very fast. And all their senses, their hearing is very acute. Their sight is 10 times of ours. At night, it's even better because they are better built to seeing at night. They are able to adjust and increase the night darkness to make it much lighter than what we can see. In pitch dark for us, they can see like almost the way I see right now. So they have very amazing eyesight. touching and licking is part of bonding for lions, and it's one of the only cat that does that. The tiger, the jaguar, the cheetah, the leopard, you name them, they don't associate, they don't form prides. Lion is the only one. Once found all the way to the Arabian Peninsula, to India, now they are very restricted to very small areas and pocket. Their main domain and home range, exists mostly in Africa, basically in East Africa and Southern Africa. Their numbers are still on the decline. Main threat is habitat loss, hunting or poaching for medicine trade in some countries, and also competition due to a lack of enough space to roam. Plus, disease is another one. I'd like you to look at those canines. Maybe if she lifts her head up, see the almost needle sharp. Those are very essential for every lion, because those are the killing, bite. Those provide the killing bite. Without those, it's almost impossible. Without those, you just are allowed to eat ice cream because you cannot bite through skin. Look at that mane on that, male lion. Really magnificent, beautiful. Yeah, it's sometimes nice to see a whole pride together. And actually, I'm very happy and excited to share this with you, because the last few days, because the last few days I've only been showing you young males and females. On this note, maybe let's see what the Oinos have been up to in the last maybe 1 year, 2 years.
Black rhino are well known for their short tempers, while young cats for their curiosity. With every encounter comes an opportunity for young lions to be taught a new lesson. A rhino calf seemed like a feasible meal for these youngsters, even when guarded by its well-armored parents. This was a chance for the lions to work on their stealth, maneuvering through the long grass without being caught out. However, black rhinos' good hearing and keen sense of smell make up for their poor eyesight, and with the change in the wind, the scent of lions set the rhino bull off. Elephants are also not ones for fun and games when lion can be smelt in the grass. Unable to find the well-camouflaged cats, the defensive mothers redirect their annoyance at the substantially smaller but steadfast rhino bull. The bull stood his ground and the mothers finally retreated. An unexpected turn of events for the day's lesson. Considering the commotion, all three families continued on unscathed. The elephants annoyed, the rhino bull admired, and the three young lions hopefully just a little bit wiser.
Quite interesting to see the interaction of the big five: rhino, elephant, and lion. Those were three. All of them are not intimidated by one another, and if possible, one will want to get rid of the other. Of course, the one that is on top of all those three you saw there would be the elephant, followed by the rhino, then the lion. But they are all in the menu of the lion. If there is a chance, the lion will eat both the rhino or the elephant. That is a beautiful male. Look at him. Yeah, good size. What are you gonna do? Itch. Yeah, it's so nice, you know. He can feel it. You can tell by how he's putting his tongue out. That is so, you know, that's how you feel so nice when you scratch your back. Sometimes you feel like you wanna, you know, pee because it's so sweet, you know, the scratch. Okay, are you gonna reposition? Wow, look at that. Beautiful male. Thank you for waiting with me. You know, sometimes pension space. You don't pee where you just been sleeping. Hey, what's wrong with you? Wow. This is what I believe about nature. If you give it a little bit of your time, sometimes it will show you some things that you never expected. Look at this. He's just gonna go behind our vehicle and come out the other side. Yeah, I think the shade on the tree is becoming too transparent because it's all, you know, heading towards noon. In another maybe, is it 45 minutes? It's going to be noon. Yes, so when the sun is up, it won't be able to cover all of them. So they're trying to get space on nearer trees, and the male has made a move.
We have found this lovely mister, chewing away, feeding. It's none other than our giraffe. There's another younger one close by. And these two are hanging out together. Oh, look at that tongue. I love the giraffe's tongue. I think it's such a useful apparatus for them. You can see its hairy chin. Also a nice feature, I think. Oh, it's missing a bit of mane there. Can you see that? Almost looks like it hasn't grown there as opposed to it being ripped off. Cheeks are really full of vegetation. Beautiful. Red dog. You'd like to know if giraffes tend to stay in family groups. Not really. They have what's called a fission-fusion society. That means that sometimes they come together and sometimes they move away from each other. Now, they may be related to the animals in the area. And of course, mothers and calves do stay together. But they don't live in family groups. Ooh, another just walked by. Males will also accompany females if they're interested in mating. Oh, look at that. Almost looked like it was picking some of the fur off the other giraffe. Perhaps that's how it lost bits of its mane. You can also see just how windy it is. Now, the quiz that I asked you earlier, a lot of clues were actually in the way that I asked you. I said, what is the animal with the largest wingspan to ever roam the skies? I didn't say bird, and I used the word ever. In fact, it's quite cool that we're looking at a giraffe at the same time. Now, some of the answers that we got were stork, owl, condor, but in fact, the answer I'm looking for is the Quetzalcoatlus, which is an extinct pterosaur. It existed during the time of the dinosaurs and went extinct with the same extinction event around 66 million years ago. And it looked very much like a giraffe, and then it had a very long neck, and it had a wingspan of between 10 to 12 meters. Can you imagine that? Flying through the air. That is just amazing. I would love to have seen what they look like.
Welcome back to And Beyond Pinda, everybody. We're speaking about disappearing animals. That giraffe you've just seen, I think who's about to disappear is this white rhino that you see in picture. You can just see those ears working overtime and those very pronounced saddles on its back. Very, very wary and sort of on high alert in wind like this. You can imagine their ears just working overtime with this constant bombardment of wind, and they're just not getting a break from it at all. There were two of them when we arrived. I can just see the one in picture at the moment, but yeah, ears working overtime. Struggle to hear in this wind, as you can imagine, but out in somewhat of a exposed area in the open here. Mom and what looked like quite an old calf, I'd say about a 3-year-old calf, but both of them where they are now in sort of a little bit more of a sheltered area on the hillside, on the side of the hill, with the wind coming from the south at the moment. Amazing how you can just see those ears tuning into everything. We had quite a nice view of Mom's face earlier. I think the noise from the engine sort of startled them a bit. She ran off with her tail curled up, which is a sign of distress, but she soon relaxed shortly after that. Rosie, who is 8 years old, is asking if I've ever come across an angry rhino. I wouldn't say angry, Rosie, but every so often if we do come across a black rhino, they are quite territorial and they have been known to charge the vehicle. So yes, I have been charged by a black rhino before in the vehicle, but they stop within about say 10 meters just to let us know that they know we're here and they're not happy with us being here, and then they'll run away and storm off in the opposite direction. But that's about the only sort of angry rhino I've seen. And then, signs of that is when they curl their tail up and they might huff and puff. But these two, like I said, they had curled their tails up and trotted away a little bit, but the noise of the engine, I didn't know they were here. Noise of the engine, I think, startled them a little bit, but they've settled down now. And just, trying to get a bit of a break from this wind, which I don't think they're going to get where they are. They'd have to venture maybe down into a little bit of a drainage line or a dried up riverbed, which might offer a little bit more shelter from the wind this morning, which has picked up significantly. But the sun is out and it's a little bit warmer, so they might perhaps go to a watering hole where we saw those lions close here. I know you've all seen a rhino and lion interaction today. They might head off to a watering hole, have a little bit of a drink and a mud wallow to try and cool off and get a break from the wind at some stage. A little bit of movement every now and again. I think maybe, won't be able to hear me. We've got the wind blowing from them to us, so they won't. I'm not sure if you can hear this wind on the other side. and that gust. You saw how that rhino now moved a little bit, sort of readjusted its position. Gust of wind just put it on edge, and you really can't hear much. I'm going to leave those two in peace, and hopefully they can get a bit of a break from the wind, maybe venture back down the mountain behind me, and we'll see what else we can find.
And we've seen that the action around this carcass has just picked up. Have a look to the left of that big male. There we have a tiny little head coming in on the action. And although it's that old, it's already eating meat. Like any other lion, and needs to become a large, very effective predator, it needs a lot of it. So you can see, look at that, it's also struggling to get some of that pieces of meat. I think the father's done most of it, and if it doesn't watch out, it might even get a little bit trampled on there next to that carcass. You can see the father's trying to turn it. Looks like there's still quite a bit of chest meat left in that area, or around the shoulders actually, and that's what he's going after. So the little one you can see is right underneath the legs at the back. The carcass can be a bit of a dangerous place for a small one like this. I think most of the excitement, or the initial excitement and frantic fighting for meat, is over now.
This is awesome. So we have a whole lot of these birds coming to drink at the local watering hole. Here we have some blue waxbills. You'd have been getting very, very familiar with them. You see them all around, and they are very, very pretty birds. Gorgeous. Oh, there's a green-winged petilia there. Can you see that? Oh, a pair of them, male and female, amongst the blue waxbills. At this time of day when it's really, really warm, now it's starting to warm up properly. This is the best time to sit at a little watering hole like we are here, or a little pan, and you watch all the birds come down to drink. It takes a little bit of patience, but out here on safari you learn to be very, very patient and wait for the animals to come to you. I'm so glad that we got, there we go, the green-winged petilias again. That's one of my favorite birds. Oh, it's just flown off. It's been a really spectacular safari, the type of one where we get to see the big animals, elephants, lions, and also appreciate the little things like these birds, as well as the trees and all things great that the bush has to offer. So I'm certainly happy to have had you on board. I love coming to this watering hole and seeing all of them. It's important that we see all of these animals so we can understand just how it all works together with the soil, the trees, the birds, the elephants, the lions, the leopards, the insects, everything giving us this glorious safari. It's been an exciting morning indeed. And thank you so much for your questions and your comments and jumping on board, of course, for CGTN's Digital Safari. We've had a great morning. And do remember that it's not the only one. Tomorrow morning it'll be the same place, same time, and I can't wait to see what the bush has to offer.